Moore,
Here.
O'Kane,
Here.
Shaner, Scott,
Here.
Waters.
Here. All right, let's go.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Here we go.
Good morning.
Good
Welcome to
morning.
the operating budget for FY26. I'll just go through. There's a couple of slides here that are repeats of the prior presentation just for the public primarily. This is a budget timeline. I've highlighted where we're at in the timeline. Again, this process starts back in July. It's a long process. There is one step that is not here that we've added this year. We've went through the exercise of between the CIP hearing and this hearing, we sat down with every department and went back through their budgets in an effort to see if we could find additional funds to make any reductions, any changes to the budget, anything that maybe the first time around we didn't recognize or we know something different than we did the first time around. So we were very successful, and I'll talk about that when we go through the budget. So we did have some success there. So again, the budget impacts. These are the same as you heard during the CIP hearing. A lot of things driven by the state. The positive impacts, we did not have a change in IPERS this year. We do have an increase in the estimated local option sales tax. And our assessments did grow minimally, but we did see some growth, like 1.5% in the taxable. Negative impacts, you can see the long list. We've been through and talked about this for several years. The backfill is, again, a detriment to the city, nearly $1.5 million. Senate File 718 is over $1 million again this year. House File 2552, converting the business property tax credit, is, again, a detriment to us of about $500,000. Fund balances used, we used over $1 million in road use funds. We have a continued subsidy to the airport, which does have a small change. We've seen a couple of different things that have occurred at the airport for some insurance purposes that we'll talk about for reductions. And we also had increases in other insurance expenses. MFPRSI, their contribution went up slightly, so that was also a negative impact. Just as a recap, the council priorities are, again, the same. We send them out back in July, August time period. We asked for council's feedback. The first priority on the list was infrastructure, followed by health and safety, economic development, quality of life, and then customer service. There were a few other things that were mentioned within the prioritization, but those were the top 5 items. So this is the proposed, just an overview of kind of the proposed operating budget. As entered, you'll see it was $260 million. As we walk through this budget, you'll see that we've added some improvement requests. The amount impacted in this budget is only about $75,000. There is a portion of that that's being funded through the CIP. So the impact on the actual operating budget is only $75,872. The not recommended improvement requests that the city manager and finance did not recommend, although they're listed in the book, that was about $1.5 million. We did have some, as finance goes through with the departments, we found some opportunities for revenue increases of a little over $200,000. And then there were reductions in expenses of $834,000. Kudos to Sarah and Tiffany. They go through the budgets line by line. They work with the departments, and they determine if they can make adjustments or changes to their budget. Sometimes things had changed, or there's a new person entering the budget in the department, and there's other things that they don't maybe know, or they're unfamiliar with their budget. So Sarah and Tiffany do a really good job going through the department budgets with them. So then our proposed budget that you see in the book for operating was $258,340,139. Now, this past 2 weeks, Sarah, myself, the departments have all went through, met together again, and determined if there were ways in which we could change or update this budget and find other expenses and or revenue opportunities in the budget. We were able to reduce the expenses by $811,000. But there was also a reduction in the revenue of $230,000. So part of that is because some of those items were reimbursed portions of, some of the positions. So, for example, one of the Art Center positions was partially reimbursed by the Art Center Association, but that position was deemed, it hasn't been filled for multiple years, and we've determined it wasn't necessary. So we've made some changes to the budget, but that's over $1 million that we were able to reduce again after the first $1 million. So we feel really good about the work that the departments have done and finance has done to try to bring this budget down as much as we can.
Bring some of that over to your budget or anything?
Oh, no.
Saving.
We made cuts too, so finance went through too and tried to do what we could do, did our part too, so. So here you'll see the CIP budget, the full budget here, we list out. The debt service didn't change, and then operating budget, you can see the reduction. Now, as we go through wrap up, you may see some changes in CIP and debt service, depending on what you approve at that time. And then today, obviously, we could see some changes in the operating, but that's what was actually proposed to you is that first column, and then what the updated, which you don't see in your book, but you do have a listing of all the updates and changes that have occurred, is in that last column there. So that's that work that we've done in the last week or so. This is a total recap of the operating budget. It's significantly the same as prior years. Nothing's really changed a lot. You'll see a huge portion of this operating budget is safety, public safety, 32% of it. Transportation is 6%. Administration, which includes the finance, HR, city manager, legal, that's kind of what administration includes. Community development and economic development is 11%. Now, culturally, you'll see that includes human rights, Parks and Rec, those areas.
Go back to that slide,
Sure.
because if you read
Okay.
Facebook, which I pay very little attention to, but you would be led to believe that 100% of our budget's going for parks and nothing's going for cops and firefighters. And the reality is it's a very small portion of our overall budget. And at 5%, I think the city's getting a pretty good deal for the amount of park space that we've added. So I just want that to be noted, that it's not some out-of-control budget, so.
Got 50,
Agree.
70 parks in the city, I forgot.
Well, yeah, and the same thing with cultural. I mean, the museum, library, and all those added together still are only 5%. So it's not like it's a out-of-control spending spree. Go ahead.
This is the property tax levy. We've went back for 10 years, and you can see kind of the middle of the road. The average is 15.7954. Our proposed this year is, with the update, 17.29. You can see that a lot of those years we dipped really far below. I will say the rollback in this year was significant to us, so that always fluctuates things quite a bit. So that was, I'm going to go to the next slide here. This kind of details out the levy, but we're, based on the updated proposed operating budget, we're proposing, it's actually a $50 increase per $100,000 of evaluation for residents. But $19 of that is 100% the rollback that they've changed this year. Now, obviously, we're not getting any of the rollback either, or the backfill, excuse me. So the backfill also is completely gone now. So we don't have any backfill at all. So those are really the huge drivers in that update, or in that increase. Prior to us doing our reviews in the last week or so, it was $56, so we were able to cut $6 just in the last week and a half or so with the department's help. So
At a dollar, how much do you have to cut?
well, that always depends. It's about $100,000 right now, but as we change things.
I know it's other stuff, I just want to know.
In debt service, in order for us, if you want to cut down in debt service, it's $124,000 right now. So each $100,000 is $1 to the levy. So, and in this proposal, you'll see that the commercial increase proposed is $137 per $100,000.
So $19 of this is change in state law, basically.
Well, $19 of it is actually just the rollback change.
And then,
$19
and then,
is just one
and
of
then the money they didn't replace it, they
Yes.
always told us they would forever.
Correct. Yep.
And then they'll go down and say, well, see, they're raising the taxes here, and half of the raise here is because of what, at least because of what the state legislature does, so that they can look like heroes when they come back home on a Saturday morning. And if you want me to get off my soapbox now, I will, but it irritates the heck out of me, because we gotta sit here, we gotta go to coffee in this city, we gotta meet with people at church and everywhere else, but we get blamed for this $50 when we have no control over the vast majority of it. It's irritating, to say the least.
So-
And they act like they go down there and are the big conservatives.
With the $19 for the rollback change, that brings you down to $31. And if we had the backfill, we didn't have the change in 718, we would be at a flat or below levy this
Yeah.
year. So,
That is what's frustrating, because I went down with the chamber to the State House, and every single meeting we had, I brought that up. I brought your figures, I spoke to it, Marty was right there with me in every meeting. I brought up the fact of, look, the specific bills are what's holding us back. We wouldn't have to assess, we wouldn't have to have these increases. And I think the mayor's spot on in the sense that it's like, they can say they're all about property tax reform and trying to do better by citizens, but they're actually just forcing city and communities all across the state. They're forcing their hand to raise in order just to keep up. I mean, this isn't a raise, and that's what I tried explaining. This isn't a raise in your property taxes saying, oh my gosh, we're gonna have all this best and, we're hiring all these more police officers, we're gonna pave all these more streets with all this increased levy. No, this is to stay afloat. And that's what's very unfortunate. And then, yeah, it was very hard to watch members of our elected officials in the state of Iowa be championed as fiscally conservative and standing by the taxpayer when it's like, well, no, they're just transferring the burden to us.
I agree.
Couple of questions. So when was the last year we received backfill?
Depends, there was two different kinds.
This year we get a portion of it, but not, I mean, they keep backing it back.
5-year fixed.
Oh, we do
So-
get, so about how much of what we would expected about?
Ooh, is that $1.4 million about?
On the slide of negative.
Yeah, I think it was.
But you don't get it
Yep,
back.
1.4, well, about 1.5 is what we've been, cumulative, what we've already been detrimented in this year, that we don't get.
It started out low and it climbed. 'Cause
Yep.
it's phasing out over a 5-year period.
Yes.
Because the size of our city.
Right.
How many more years of this little tidbit do we have? Just one?
This is it.
This is the last
Yeah.
one.
This is it.
Last year.
26 is 0 now.
Yep.
And then as far as the taxes again, property taxes, there is another bill out there that they're projecting to pass. And what that's going to do, they're proposing a change to our homestead tax.
Yep.
Right now, if you're a senior citizen or a vet, you get a small percentage.
Yep. You get an
and-
exemption.
Yes, you get an
Yes.
exemption, but it's a percentage of what they said you would get. So it was kind of read wrong, and some citizens kind of held our legislators to the fire and said, this isn't how we interpreted this. And so now they brought it back. And
Unfortunately, when they brought it back, they didn't bring it back as an exemption, they brought it back as a credit.
Correct.
So that's a huge difference, and an exemption and a credit is extremely different. So a credit would mean that they would have up to that dollar amount that they would not pay at all in
That's
taxes.
exactly what they
Which
brought
is
back.
about 20 to 25% of our population.
About 27%, I spoke with the assessor. So you would get the credit up to $6,500 if you're 5 years or older.
There's also a military credit that
And the
impacts us
military
too.
credit's up to 4,000.
Yep.
So that's going to have another huge impact if that passes.
Huge.
And if I think about that, I'm not 65, but my husband is. And I think, wow, I mean, it sounds great. It sounds pretty. It sounds fabulous. Look at our legislators are doing for us. But look at what they're doing to us is more the statement that people should focus on. It's, we need this money to run our city. So what
Yeah,
kind of a move?
just shifting the burden onto other property owners or other areas in which
Absolutely.
we will have to.
Absolutely. So when.
To continue to run our
champion
city.
For our seniors, that's great, but be prepared to cover for those seniors, because someone has to make up the difference.
Yep.
And I find this bill just absolutely an atrocity. I do. I think it's absolutely ridiculous.
My hope is that their intention was still for an exemption, not for a credit, and there's, confusion,
That's
but
not what it says, though.
it isn't.
It
You're
absolutely
right.
not what it says. It says if you're 65, you're not paying any property taxes up to $6,500. That's what it says. So get on the phone, get on your emails.
Find a new house, I can.
I have my second comment was going to be for today, and I know the mayor will fall out of his chair, but I'm going to be looking at just what our essential services are, so that we don't have if I have a pet project for $100,000, which I do, I'm not even going to address it, but it doesn't mean I'm against anything. I'm trying to hold the budget down and just talk about essential services. Is it essential that we have that, or is there something we don't have that we're not providing that we should be?
This is really just a status quo budget. We haven't added really anything to the budget at all. Normally, we have some improvement requests that we add. We didn't have a whole lot of that this year, so there's very minimal updates to the budget, so.
Being a taxpayer, I would look at your property tax levy that you had, and I'd say, what'd we do in 2021 and 2022? Why can't we go back to those 2 years?
Well, the rollback was beneficial to us then, so that sways a lot. I mean, $20 one way or another is significant, and it was beneficial to us last year and detrimental to us this year.
Well, I'm with Dan. I'm not going to make any friends here today, but in tough times, we have to make tough decisions, and in tough times, department heads have to understand that you may not get all you want this particular year simply because you don't have to go to the coffee shops and talk to people about their tax bill, and I do, and I'm sensitive to that. And so I guess whether we make friends today or not, it's not important to me. It's important we do everything we can to look at this budget, and it's just going to have to be a year where we don't get to do some of the things we may want to do, and that's unfortunate, but reality.
Any other questions? Okay, well, we'll move forward. Thank you.
You.
Up first, we have Legal Department, page 167, Nicole DuBois.
Good morning, Council. Nicole DuBois, City Attorney. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, before we start, I have one question. Your budget, if you go to the overall budget in administration, I think it was, the water fund contributes, I think, more than the sewer fund.
Saw that, too.
And how do you, when you have the exact same number of customers, why is that?
It's all based on usage. So when we do our cost allocation plan, the legal department, they track their time and the amount of time that they've used within those departments and providing services.
No, I wasn't just talking about hers. I was talking overall, it's significantly different when you look at the total budget. It's like $900,000 difference, I think I saw, wasn't it?
Well, they're all different based
Well,
on the
no, but in your
allocation.
front page here.
Yep. So each department, the way that they're allocated out based on the cost allocation plan is different. Some of them are based on the number of employees.
Okay.
So like HR would be based on the number of employees because they service the employees. So I'm assuming water has a larger number of employees than sewer, so that would drive it. Or like finance is based on their use of the department. Again, part of that is based on employees, the number of paychecks, the number of APs. So they're
Okay.
a little bit different. So you'll see that change from year to year too as there's.
Okay, go ahead.
Our budget is very similar to last year with a slight increase, mainly in employee compensation and a little bit for general services. $51,690 is overall increase to the department. I previously submitted an improvement request for another position based on the fact that it isn't favored, I've withdrawn that because I know it's a very tough budget year and we're doing okay. We're making do with the staff that we have.
So I just want to highlight that because it seems like every year we bring this up, especially during your review. Every year we say, I mean, we look at what gets handled in your department, and we think about the fact that you have 7 employees that are shouldering all of this. We always bring up, you know, are you sure that you have enough staff and do you feel well supported? And so it was bittersweet. I like that I saw the request, and I'm worried that if we don't at least have an open conversation about what the needs of the department are, that the rubber band will be pulled a little bit too far, and I don't want that to happen. So we reclassified a position as a paralegal. Have you seen, has that been beneficial to the department overall?
I think the person that was in that position was already doing that work, so
Okay.
it was just really retitling
Just a title change?
the work that she was already doing.
I don't want this to die entirely, because I think that you do need it, frankly. I think that you guys handle a lot of work and that you're stretched very thin. And I'm worried that, I'm worried that we could lose people potentially in your department as well if the work becomes too great, simply because there is high demand in other places in town.
And one of the options that we have had in the past is if we have either conflicts or the current workload is such, we can go outside the organization and hire outside counsel or outside assistants.
Okay.
And perhaps that's one of the things that we look at with the upcoming year is how much we've had to do that and look at that in comparison to a support or an administrative position, if that would transfer into that. Right now, we have a few cases where we've had conflicts or larger specialty cases that we have outside, but there's not very many. So we can look at that if we need to do that based on the workload and bring that back to the council next year during budget and see if there's a change in our ability to have an improvement request or what the actual dollars are that we've used for outside services.
So you feel confident?
Yeah, I think that's a smart perspective, is
Yeah.
at least be able to weigh that, because if something can be improved by adding someone and you can do, you know, a more efficient job or better or handle more cases, you don't have to hire outside, you don't have to do that. It's like that might be a net positive rather than hiring outside if you had a more full-time person that was able to streamline more processes. So that would be helpful. That's for sure.
I appreciate that you have a bright line, though, on conflicts, because that's extremely important. You have to go outside, you do go outside instead of say, oh, we can make this work, because the other side's going to see what you're doing and it could blow up your whole litigation. So thank you for doing that.
I'm getting in the weeds here, but I'm shocked that we've never charged the TIF for all the work that she does in the TIF areas. It says 0 in past years. Am I reading that right?
So that's an update with the cost allocation plan. So with the cost allocation plan, we are now appropriately charging the funds.
Yeah,
based
but
on
you're
usage.
about, 10 years of,
Well, I don't disagree, but that was prior to my coming, and so we've made a change, and
I'm asking the question, can we go back and fund at least last year's and reduce property taxes and use TIF for the 17,807?
let me look into that. I'm not,
I would say no, because then it would affect prior year releases to pay, because if we're paying out of TIF, we'd have to
Right.
adjust our releases.
Well,
just have to make up for it next year.
And keep in mind, we benefit by the release because everything that we release goes into our general fund anyways. So her budget maybe didn't show TIF before, but it was paid for by the general fund, which got the release in the first place.
I understand that, but it wouldn't, okay,
I can look at it and see what it does.
okay, I won't argue about it. That's fine.
Well, go ahead and state your case, though.
Yeah.
Well, you have, did you spend everything? Because sometimes the TIF districts actually have more in them than what you anticipate.
That's why I want to look at it. I want to look at, I know what TIF
That's my
she's been
point.
working, so there's 2 particular TIFs that may have availability.
Because if that's the case, you have that right then to reduce the property taxes. and
What I'm
not-
saying is, didn't we already certify the release?
We
this year,
did, but
This coming year?
what he's saying is that if we didn't utilize all the funds, so sometimes we,
Oh, you're saying like a
right,
fund transfer?
yep,
Okay.
well, yep,
That's all I'm saying.
yep.
Okay.
Take a review.
Because
and
the
bring it
budget is
back.
based on the release, and then potentially we don't always have all the tax rebates and
Okay,
whatnot in that year.
that makes
so,
sense.
Yep, I'll look at it, and then we'll bring it back to wrap up.
Okay, thank you. I'm trying to get 100,000 or two today, so,
Okay? We'll
It's
do that.
gonna be a slow
Little at a time, but
process.
we'll get to it.
all right.
Anything else for Nicole?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Art Center, page 87, Todd Barron.
Morning, Todd Behrens, Art Center Director. Here to answer any questions. As Nicole, just like with Nicole, pretty much a similar budget as we presented in recent years, no significant changes. We did, as Teresa mentioned in her presentation, did have a couple of technical changes that aren't visible in the summary or the budget pages. But we did reduce the complement by 2. These are, in one case, a position that's actually never been filled, and another one that's, it hasn't been filled in 7 or 8 years, probably. Primarily, these are positions that are funded through the association privately, but the development coordinator is split between the cities, so.
That's reflective on the schedule review that tells you that technical expenses and revenue under the technical changes, those are the reviews that we did with the departments, that's reflective on there. It's not reflective in your book because that happened after the book was printed.
And all of those details will come back at wrap-up.
Todd, what was that position?
There are 2 positions, one in the Art Center Development Coordinator. Excuse me, there had been 2 listed. For a while, we had 2 development coordinators. We actually only have 1 now. And in the Gilchrist Learning Center, there's an education, basically an assistant, education specialist position, which was a position that was established when the Gilchrist Learning Center opened, but we never actually filled it. It will be just eliminated, yeah.
Okay, all right, thank
Just,
you.
it'll help clarify. Our budgets always look a little weird because the approved and proposed for current and next year's always look much higher than the actuals from recent years, so it'll just clarify that.
Okay,
It's been a number of years since those positions have been filled, so.
Then it becomes obvious that we don't need to fill it.
Working
Right.
with Todd, he's determined based on the number of years that we've been able to sustain and not need to fill the positions. So we did some cleanup.
as long as it doesn't make a difference when the mayor and I come to the Art Center.
My once-a-year trip.
See you in a few weeks.
Well, you gave up 15,000 right away on $1.5 million budget, so thank you. Appreciate it. I know it's not easy, but I appreciate it.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Todd.
Thanks, Todd.
Library, page 171, Helen Rigdon.
Good morning.
Morning.
We did have a couple of improvement requests that we had made. The one was to take our facility workers' positions and make them custodians, which better describes what they actually do. And so then Baker Tilly, the classification and compensation study backed that up. So I'm hoping that one's going to go through. And then the other one was just a title change for it's basically my assistant director. They've been calling her the operations manager. I don't know why, but the assistant director title, especially in a library when you're dealing with irate patrons, that makes more sense to, you say, I'm the assistant director. It feels like she has more authority to deal with them, but there's no salary increase or anything. It's just a title change in her job.
I feel like that should be easy enough for Janelle or
Yeah,
them to be able to work through.
And that's on the recommended list.
yeah.
And Teresa, so is the change to custodian,
No, that will have to be done through negotiations. When they're when the library comes up for negotiation, that will.
'Cause I know you and I,
Yep.
better usage or rotation of that, but yeah, understand your need and what you're looking at too, so.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Any other questions or?
Yeah, I got a motion to make, which you're not gonna like, but
Okay,
based upon the percentages of library, art center, and museum, I look at those as all cultural type deals, even though I don't go to any of them very often. I think I'm being fair in recommending that, we reduce the budget by $5,000 is all, and I'm being more than fair when you look at a percentage of the budget, because so much labor, but in the other stuff, that's what I'm trying to base it on.
So much what?
Based upon, they got a $3.8 million budget, they gave up 24. The museum, or art center has like $1.5 million, and they gave up 15. The museum has like $1.2 million, and they gave up 19. I'm just trying to get it more in line, so I'll move that. If it doesn't get a second, we're moving on.
I'll second it. That makes sense. Sorry, Helen.
Well, and my thought
We'll
is,
see more of this, I think.
and I guess my stance or position too is I don't wanna, I think it's wrong, I guess, to blanket or classify all services that the city provides equally. I mean, whether or not that makes sense, I think you look at, it's sometimes difficult to see every single one through the exact same lens when they might be providing a different service, dealing with a different number of patrons, having a different number of employees. I mean, so that's where I just find difficulty in seeing.
Well, that's fine, you can vote no,
Oh, I know, but I just like justifying why a vote.
Well, that's fine, but I'm not asking them to do 10% of their budget like the others have done. That's all I'm saying. The museum did like 15% of their budget. So I'm just trying to, I'm not even asking them to basically do 7%. So I don't think it's unreasonable. That's why I made the motion, but I don't want to argue about stuff today. I just want to vote it up or down and we move on. That's where I'm at, so.
O'Kane?
No.
Shaner?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye?
Waters?
No.
Moore?
Aye.
We'll have to
Passes
work
3-2.
with Teresa.
Yep, we'll work through that, and then we'll bring it back as a wrap-up
okay.
item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Todd, did you want your son to have a donut? There's plenty up here, and he got
Yeah,
up.
come on.
He got up early. I don't know what he did, what you're punishing the poor kid for, but, okay.
Museum, page 183, Steve Hansen.
Morning, everyone.
Look at you looking all
Good morning.
You know, it's city manager's last budget, so I thought I'd dress up just for
There you
him.
go.
Very nice.
Good to miss you, Bob. I think you just look at the budget, our three items, what increase there is, you look at salaries, utilities, insurance, and that pretty well sums it up. Other than that, it's pretty status quo budget. Just open up for any questions.
Holding the line.
You have a pretty good track record each year.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Questions?
It's nice to see the volunteer numbers rebounded. Attendance seems to be up as well. We're getting good utilization.
Yeah,
That's-
and I would take the opportunity to invite everybody down the exhibit that opened last weekend, the Dino exhibit, which features a couple of local guys' collections, has been incredibly popular, so.
Good.
I'm working this weekend, so it's gonna be fun, but even yesterday, a lot of moms and kids, and I forget that sometimes there was no school yesterday afternoon. I think they all came down to the museum, so that was good, but, so anyway, I think by the end of this year, we won't quite be up to pre-COVID, but we'll be getting pretty close in all areas, so that's encouraging.
Well, I'm missing Seamus's soccer game right now, so I have to make it up to him anyway, so I'll meet you down there.
Yeah.
Should be out of here about 7 o'clock tonight? No.
You may be, I'll be gone long before that.
Yeah.
but- All right, anything else? All right, let's move on.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Stop
Thanks,
down to the
Steve.
museum.
Com Center, page 293, Wendy Hess.
Give Wendy the big atta girl today. She found the money, unlike her counterpart.
But I'm going to ask for some more.
Yeah, I know.
So just on the original budget preparation, I did my best to reduce all line items, just looking at 3 years of actual expenditures. And then this week, working with finance, I identified some expenditures that we could use 911 money for, training, software, and tower repairs. And then looking at the Starcom budget that all the users contribute to, which Sioux City pays 53% of the Starcom budget. They have had a budget surplus over the last 4 years, so we're taking 75,000 of that surplus and reducing the fees to all the user agencies. It's still going to leave them a little surplus should any unexpected expenses come up, but that is creating a reduction. So I am asking for an improvement request to add a communications training operator. Since 2022, hiring has just been constant. It's been more than a challenge. So in FY24, we hired 7. We've hired 3 so far in FY25, and we know we'll have 2 more positions open with upcoming retirements. So we just continue to see retirements in addition to normal turnover. So in FY23, when Glenn retired, we restructured the department in that the operations supervisor position was allocated 50% to Starcom. Well, that helped our operating budget because Starcom paid 50% of that. We also kind of lost a person 50% of the time. So the position that did a lot of the supervision of the new hire training is doing Starcom radio duties 50% of the time. Current full-time staff is doing the training of new employees, and honestly, they're getting burnout because we've had so many hires. So they do a great job, but they weren't hired to be trainers. So we really need somebody to help with hiring, onboarding, and training, both hands-on training of new hires and making sure that current staff has all their required continuing education. Some of the things that we should be doing, we're not doing. We're not reviewing medical calls on a regular basis. We haven't done that for a year now, and just doing other call review. So, you know, we are a high-functioning, efficient department that is very task-oriented. We're a bunch of doers. We don't have any administrative staff, but we need some help with our training. And I know that it's a bad time, but I'm not sure there's ever going to be a good time to ask for additional staff persons. So the last few years have been more than challenging, and this position would be a huge help. I don't come asking for things much, and I don't come asking for wants. I'm coming asking for a need. You know, we are essential services. We are public safety. It would be money well spent investing in our department and our continued success. So adding the position, the total budget effect is around $99,000 based upon the 28E between the city and the county. The effect to the city would be almost 70,000, 69,000 and some odd cents. So,
Wendy, you've stated a good case. Having been a trainer for years in my career, it is very important that you have a trainer. I recognize that. You and I have talked about that. It's one thing to have the buddy system that you pull up a chair, you plug in, you listen to how your future counterpart does their job. It helps you to decide, is this something I want to do, et cetera. But when they're onboarding and the training really begins, that training should be consistent. I mean, there are so many different ways to do the job correctly, because I know you have your processes, I know you have rules, regulations, medical things, all this, and that gets done per call. However, Matthew, who's very technical whiz, he may be able to flip to another screen, you know, with a little click here, and it might take me, you know, different keystrokes to do it, many different ways to do the same thing. And it's best and most important that everyone is doing that the same and doesn't put a lot of confusion into that job. And that can have to do with longevity during training. People who don't make it through training Sometime it's the training that they're not locking into. It could be many reasons.
Absolutely. And a while back, HR did some research for us, looking at, you know, how long people stay. And really, if they stay about 3 or 4, 6 months, they generally stay a long time.
Right.
So definitely, the start that we take with people is so important.
Right.
And we do evaluations of our training program with new employees, and that is one of the consistent themes that we see is, this person told me to do it that way, and this person told me to do it this way, because we do have systems that there are multiple ways of doing things. But then that just creates a lot of confusion, because we all think that the way we do it is the best way.
Right.
But to have some consistency, having a trainer would be important. And we had, this position did exist many years ago.
Right, you're putting
And
it back.
during one of those really tough budget years, it was one of the sacrifices that was made, so. And, you know, it really is needed. And times are just changing a lot for us. And, you know, we're seeing, there were years, I think, like 2017, 2018, 2019, we didn't hire anyone. And that's just totally different now. And then we're starting to see our retirement. So I'm kind of hoping in, you know, 5, 6 years, some of those long-term employees will be retired, and then we may have a good run of, you know, a long time where we don't have so much hiring. So I know it's tough. I know that adding to our budget is a challenge. I just don't know that if we don't do it this year, is next year going to be any better?
Not if the state does anything.
Wendy?
Right, right.
Wendy, so there are people that are educated in being a training operator,
Correct.
and they've got the background and
So
the
there's,
schooling for that?
There's a class, it's much like, so the people that are doing the training right now are certified training operators. They do receive additional pay while they're training, so there is some incentive. It's kind of like similar to like the police FTO program. The person, they document what they're doing, they work with them daily, but they get burnout. You know what it's like to have somebody, you know, sitting beside you every day, you know, so not everybody wants to train. And we could just use help, you know, so this person could do a lot of that. Granted, they won't be able to do all the training because there's times where we have 3 new hires and they obviously can't do it 100%, but it would be a huge help.
Would some of the extra, excuse me, some of the extra pay for those that do the training there at the location, could some of that be used for funding a training operator?
Probably, it would be very minimal though, and I'm
Yeah, I
not
don't know
sure.
how
I
much
don't know
we're
if we've really
talking
looked
about.
at what we pay. It's almost like a shift differential. It's while they're actively training. I think it's, I'd have to look at the contract. I think it might be like $1.50 an hour. Does that sound about right?
Not very
I
much.
can't remember.
It's like a-
I
maybe
don't know if
Okay.
we've ever really looked at how much we're spending on that. And
Would
then,
that person be a working operator when they're not training them?
absolutely, absolutely. Because there's times both myself and Travis are filling in, and that, you know, it's another body and it's another person that could fill in. And I would expect, we have people internally that would be interested and be great at the job that would be promoted. The other thing too is it may play a role in our succession planning, you know. I'm not gonna be there forever, and this would be another person, potentially a position that would be more of a leadership position within the center, and maybe, you know, a future director, so.
I guess we'll bring it back and wrap up. We won't make any promises today, but we'll put it on to wrap up. And
I will say, just to add, this is something that we brought up in our WIC commission meetings, you know, more than a couple of times. And it always comes back to when you have to call 911, when there's an emergency, having a well-trained individual on the other line. I mean, they're doing so much more than just coordinating emergency services. They're walking somebody who doesn't know anything about an emergency situation through stopping the bleed or minimal like CPR or just making sure that that person stays in a somewhat stable condition until the professionals arrive. And that's a lot of stress already. We've heard about a lot of emergency calls That, I mean, you've had staff that have had to go through counseling services because it's a very stressful situation you're put in a very short amount of time.
Absolutely.
And sometimes the person on the other end of the line is not happy that you're picking up either, and they can be a little bit abusive because they're stressed out and they're in an emergency situation. So that, coupled with having to train an individual for the job that you're currently doing, it's just a lot to put on one person's plate.
Have the
right.
calls increased? Has there been a significant increase?
Actually, if you look at the numbers, it looks like a
there-
slight decrease.
Are those somewhere in here?
But from being there, I believe we're definitely seeing a lot more higher priority calls. But overall, it looks like a slight decrease. When we moved to the Motorola Flex system a few years ago, tracking those numbers got a little more complicated because the way the old system did things, the new system is different. For example, in the old system, a car accident with injuries created 2 calls, a police call and a fire ambulance call. The Flex system, it puts those both into 1 call. So it looked, during the transition, it looked like a big decrease, but it was just the way that the system created calls and the numbers. So a slight decrease, but still pretty consistent. And honestly, we've done it with less people over the last few years because it seems like we're always short-staffed, and sometimes we just do it with less, so I appreciate
Thank you
you
for that.
listening.
I apologize, Mayor. I just have one quick question. I try to think creatively about workforce. I'm in a lot of conversations about workforce, specifically thinking outside of the box sometimes to address a need. And one of the things that some businesses and industries and wells even, I mean, some different areas are already looking at this, is you have retirements that are coming up or that you know about. Is there any way to activate them as training, or would they be, and I'm trying to think creatively, we think differently about retirements, we think differently about people with disabilities, different abilities, and like how could they enter the workforce to be in a supportive role or to be able to offset some part, even if it's not a full-time FTE. I wonder about some of those retirees, if it's like, gosh, I'm ready to retire, but I don't want to give up everything. I still want to be a part of something or doing something part-time. I don't know, it doesn't necessarily have to be a volunteer basis, but it could reduce your ask, and you have a person that has a wealth of knowledge that might still want to be activated. I'm not saying you don't deserve an FTE, so don't get that wrong, but I'm saying that I wonder if any of those individuals would be interested in something that would assist the overall department.
So people that have retired have never shown an interest in coming back part-time. I don't know specifically with their IPERS retirement.
There has to be a
how that-
6-month lapse. They can't come, they can't stay on, even part-time, there has to be at least a 6-month lapse for them to even come back.
So we would gladly take them if they wanted to come work for us part-time, but I think they put in their time and are, not wanting to, but, yeah, so.
One question to clarify, so you're looking at a $70,000?
Correct.
Is that what we're talking about?
Correct,
Okay.
yes.
And then just one more clarification. If you had this position filled, those who are on the list that get the bump when they are training, your operators, if they're reduced from doing that because of this trainer, that will, through osmosis, not using that time, because they'll log in as training, right? That
Yes.
bumps up their
Yeah,
differential
so
pay.
we actually
So they'll be
like,
logging in less.
Yes.
So yes, it's
Yes.
not going to be double dipping.
yes, correct.
Okay, I just want
Correct.
to clarify that.
Yep, absolutely.
They have 2 logins, one today I'm training,
We,
or
we
these
kind,
hours.
we
or-
like add,
Right.
they
Right.
turn in the training reports and we add basically like the differential for those hours
Yeah,
that
so
they
if
were
I'm the
doing.
trainer and I'm training a lot for my salary, these guys are training less,
Correct,
there will be a slight change.
Yes.
It's not going to be double time,
yes,
Gotcha.
correct,
just because I'm certified.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Malloy.
IT, page 297, John Malloy.
Mayor, Council, Good to see you again.
Morning.
Now, IT's here again to represent the mayor's vision from 1987 to create a combined IT shop.
Wow.
Yeah,
Who wrote that for you?
just thought of it here in the last few minutes, so. And again, that is a true statement. I did some analysis here a few weeks ago as far as operating budgets and FTEs throughout the state, and the mayor's vision is true. I think we've saved the city and the county millions of dollars.
Millions.
What's that?
Millions.
Millions. Yeah, I'd say that's a conservative statement. So, anyway, without that being said, I just wanted to congratulate
Let me
you.
explain, it wasn't just the mayor, there were other people at the time, but thank you for the comment.
Imagine you were the straw that
Well, I
stirred the
don't
drink,
like
though.
to,
so,
I don't
yeah.
like to brag.
Okay. All right. Handful of items from this year's budget. Thankful for the improvement that provides managed service provider for the OVG employees at Tyson and Convention Center. We're trying to segregate that off from a security perspective, and that improvement was at least tentatively approved. I'm grateful for that. Us supporting third-party employees does not make sense from a security perspective, so that, again, that segregates that function off. One void that I see in our department is a GIS leadership position. That improvement was not approved. Again, GIS is an amazing tool, and I've had somebody informally performing that role here for a couple, 3 years. That's an improvement I would like to be considered. And again, just like Wendy said, every year is a tough year, and if I had a choice, that would be my next choice as far as an improvement. And I would even be willing to give up the network monitoring, which is a higher improvement that was approved in lieu of that GIS improvement. So,
I would agree. I have brought up GIS, I think, more in this past year than any other topic, and I think we severely underutilize GIS in this city. I mean, the implications it has for economic development. I brought it up during our historical preservation joint committee meeting. I just think that it truly could be a very powerful tool for this city to use, not just to entice businesses to bring their business to Sioux City, but in accommodating for preserving historical buildings or tracking water mains, or, I mean, the list is literally endless. So if you'd be willing to do that, I would absolutely like to see that brought back.
that'd be about a 20,000 net positive.
That's what I was going to ask you, what number
Short-
we're
short
looking
20,
at.
yeah.
Right at 20?
Yeah, short 20, I think it'd be 19.
Our part's set 10,000 though.
Say that again.
Isn't
Our
our
state-
part 10,743, the city portion? You upgrade the senior systems to the GIS?
Yep,
It
to the
would be
GIS.
60% of that.
Right. That's
So
what I'm
it-
saying, our part's 10,000.
Your part would be 6,000.
10,743.
Of the 20,000.
You're taking out you're removing some money.
I'm removing the network monitoring, $30,000 improvement.
But that's already,
That,
that's
a
already
portion of
been
that's funded
approved.
by
So it's a
CIP.
$10,743.
So if we didn't, what he's saying is if we went this forward, you would not need the other improvement,
I
correct?
would be willing to
Don't
forego
need
that.
it, he would just trade.
Okay. But that is a CIP. We're funding that through CIP, not through operating.
The full amount.
Well, we'll
Yes,
bring
the
it back.
50,000.
You
Yep,
can
we can
show
bring it
us
back.
what the changes are.
So, but the net amount is then 20,000 to the city? No. Is that what I'm just trying to get a dollar
Yeah,
amount I
I'm
can
trying to
write
get it down too.
The 10,000
$1,000 expense.
is for the. that's the city's share.
10,743 is the city
Yeah.
portion. Okay. Right
But
there.
even if he doesn't do the other, what I'm saying is there's still a $10,000 expense because it's an operating and we were funding the other through CIP.
Right.
But the operating would be 60% city of that $10,700.
That is the city's portion, 10,743. Right?
I don't know if that's true, a true statement or not.
Well, I'm just going by what they're
We
saying.
can bring
on-
that back for sure. I mean,
We'll bring it back.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
know to be our
Okay.
expense.
We'll bring it back.
I mean, we trust you, John.
I'm glad
However,
4 of you
if
do.
one's funded CIP and one's budget. Is there a necessity to trade those? Do you give up one?
We'll just bring the whole thing back.
Okay.
She'll have the
Yep.
numbers of what it actually, how it affects
Okay.
both the CIP and the regular.
Yeah.
So you're just upgrading a current position, correct?
That would, yeah, that was my proposal.
So, yep,
Yep,
that's
Because the person is, that work's going to them
yes.
partially.
Performing that leadership in that position, yes, correct.
Thank you, John.
Yep, and I want to point out one other thing. Software maintenance has just been crazy. I did budget 5% increase, and we've had a half a dozen software renewals that have went from 220 to 250% increases. So it's been nuts.
Oh, man.
So just throwing that red flag out there. That might become an issue at end of year. So, yeah.
How soon do you think AI will replace you? I'm just kind of curious.
I was thinking the same for you, Mayor.
They don't need AI to replace me, pal.
And the software, that's split with the county as well.
Yes.
Yes.
Is that 50/50?
For which, the software
Well, it
maintenance?
depends.
What
You've got some,
increases
you've
you're
got
talking
some and
about?
they've got some. so-
Yeah, there's a lot that are 50/50, and then there's a handful that are 100% one direction or
Oh,
the other. But
okay.
the majority is 50/50.
Okay.
I seem to remember us paring back on.
Thank you, John.
Okay.
You look good in that uniform the other night. You did a great job.
I was
That's one of
thankful.
the better looking crews I've seen on the basketball
I'll
court.
share that with my partners.
Yeah, you weren't that great of a crew officiating, but you look good out there.
You look
Yeah.
very professional.
Try to fool people, Mayor. It's not the job I do, so, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Human Resources, page 155, Janelle Bertrand.
Good morning.
Janelle Bertrand, Human Resources Director. You will see a small increase from our budget. That is due to a reassignment of a position from the city manager's office to my department. I also worked with the city manager and finance back in November and last week and identified several fund lines of expenditures that could be reduced. So I'm here to answer any questions if you have any.
Well, I appreciate the reductions for one. Anything that we can find.
Thank you.
And it was just the administrative assistant was the only improvement request that you had?
Correct.
Okay.
And that was withdrawn.
I don't have any questions for you.
All right.
Thanks, Janelle.
Thank you.
We are scheduled for a break. Would you like to break, or do you want to move on?
we're a little bit early.
You want a break?
You want a break, guys? It's up to you, or keep,
Or we can keep moving through.
Let's go till 10.
Matthew wants 2 minutes.
we'll go, you want a break?
2 minutes.
We'll take a little break.
Okay.
We can take another one later.
Gotta hit the head. 2 minutes.
Events facilities, page 119.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. I'm Chad Smith, General Manager of the Tyson Event Center and the Sioux City Convention Center. We do have a slight increase that we're looking at for this year's budget, and that is due to some staffing increases that we had with the addition of the convention center to our umbrella. Also in that budget increase is the IT change that Wick mentioned earlier.
I get all that, but if we're doing better, then the city tax portion, other than the security or whatever, which I don't quite comprehend, and the insurance is not your problem. But if we're doing better, then the city portion of tax asking should be going down. And it's not. And that's why we hired you guys.
Right.
So why am I paying more today than I did yesterday?
I think you can look at just the general economy right now, Mayor. I mean, everything costs more. Eggs cost more, bread costs more, gas costs more.
Well, then you should be charging more.
We have increased our fees.
Yeah, and you've increased your concession prices and those sort of things. That's your job, not
Correct.
mine.
Correct.
Your job is to have less tax dollars going into the operation today than you did yesterday. That's your job.
That's our goal.
And you make more, I want you to make more, but at the end of the day, I don't want you to make more and our tax askings to go up. What am I missing here?
I don't have a good answer for you on what you're missing there. We are doing our best to manage the taxpayers' money and to not spend more than we need to. Typically, even though we do ask for a specific budget amount, we do usually come in under that amount. It may not be a significant amount, but we typically do come in under the amount of asking. You know, and in adding a third building to what we're doing, we did need to add a staff accountant, and that was one of the major things that we wanted to do, and that's actually where a majority of this increase comes from, is in that added FTE. Otherwise, our operational costs, we have work to come down on those. But everything is costing us more money, including, you know, our city
I'm not
stuff.
disagreeing with anything you say, but all that should be reflective in the operation that you're doing. Otherwise, if we're doing more business and losing more money, we've talked about this in the past, don't do more business.
Yeah, Mayor, I just wanted to reinforce something Chad touched on, and that, like, we try and budget conservatively, and I think every year we've come in well under the budget that we propose, so we'll certainly strive towards that. You know, our business, especially this far out, can be cyclical, and you know, things like NAIA, for instance, can swing $100,000 one way or another just based on who makes the championship. So, you know, those things are hard to predict. You know, again, I just want to reinforce, you know, each year we have reduced the expenditure, you know, but we wanted to try and be conservative in the number that we presented.
Feel that's accurate? Because I guess I understand where Nick and Chad are coming from in that it's better to probably budget needing more and having that ask be higher and then be able to reduce or have it be lower at the end if they had a better year, rather than being on lower side and then having to go back and ask. Because it's been my understanding that they have done better in previous years and that the subsidy has been reduced or
It has been reduced. We're very careful to try to budget beyond what we think the expenses will be. So we try to stay in a fine line where we don't, you know, excessively levy either. It does appear that they have come in under budget. We can certainly look and go through the budget with them to see if there's any opportunity. I will say, just looking at their budget, about $98,000 of their increase is related to insurance, and then that one IT improvement request. So they do still have a small increase, but a large portion of that is related to those two items. The mayor has requested that we bring back their budget to wrap up so that we, in a memo, you guys are able to see their itemized budget, and we can do that so that you can take a look at it and see what their budget looks
Well,
like.
and I also want to see that in 2024, their budget and their actual.
Okay. Yep. we
And
can
I
do
don't,
that.
I don't care.
Sorry, Mayor, what?
I want to see what we budgeted in 2024 and that they actually came in under. I'm not disputing anything you're saying, but we hired you to lower the tax bill, not to,
I do think in the last at least the last 2 years, we've paid the incentive for what, by their contract, they have a base that we established 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever. It said this is the tax asking, and I think the last 2 years they beat that.
I just want to see
You just
it.
want to see it? Yeah. Yep.
I don't want the taxpayers, we were sold that this would come down.
And it has.
Well, I understand to some degree it has come down, but now it's going back up, and that's a concern for me. A legitimate concern, whether you guys want to believe that or not.
Understood.
So, I know I'm the only guy pretty much that feels that way here, but
Well, no.
that's my
I'm just
job.
saying, I think
Well,
that it's
Alex,
higher here.
I'm not gonna go there, that's fine. If it's coming down, then let's see it's coming down.
Do the comparison.
Yeah, we can certainly work with.
So
Ruth on
we'll
that,
bring
yeah.
back the budget actuals, but what's complicated about '24 is that they took over the convention center partway through the year, so that wasn't budgeted that way. So we'll have to go through the budget and try to siphon out what portion of the year you took over to determine of the convention center. So if I gave you what was budgeted for OVG right now, it wouldn't be reflective of that additional service that they took on for the convention center. So I need to go through and siphon out that convention center budget.
It doesn't matter. The convention center was in there, in this overall summary. Whether they were running it or not, it was in there.
I agree. There were some expenses related to us releasing the other contract. So I need to remove those, and then we can bring back to you guys what those look like once we remove those expenses, because those are not their expenses, it's part of their contract.
That's fine.
You'll have 25 though, won't you?
Well, they're not done yet.
We're not quite done with 25 yet. 25 won't end until June. I can show you we can do 23 and 24, bring those back, the budgeted versus actual. But the 24, like I said, right now, I couldn't give you exactly what their true dollar was, because a portion of that expense is related to contract implications.
We don't have a snapshot of 25. I know we've got the months, but
But their business is so cyclical to show, they
Right.
may have 5 concerts the last month that make them a lot of money, so
It's
that's not
difficult.
fair to them to have to do show now because you don't know.
that makes sense, okay.
Yeah, you gotta have a full year of their operation to be fair to them.
So I'll work with Jessica and both of them to determine what the 23 and 24 look like. Budget versus actuals. We'll bring that back to wrap up. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Police, page 217, Chief Mueller.
Morning.
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 Not trying to, I just want to ask the question, the purchase for SWAT replacement gear, listen, I don't want to send a police officer out there without good gear, but is it something that has to be done this year, or can it wait a year?
Well, unfortunately, what we have with some of the gear, and we go beyond the lifespan, they actually place a lifespan on body armor, things of that nature. So it's one of those things that while we believe the equipment probably lasts longer than that, the manufacturers don't certify that. So much of that is replacement of body armor plates, et cetera. That's not something that normally in years past, we really hadn't had a budget for SWAT, so it was smart for Captain Groves to actually begin to budget for our needs so that we could replace equipment that was exceeding its lifespan. And obviously, the events of the last couple of years have demonstrated to us that how important some of these pieces of equipment are. And we're using SWAT probably more than we had in prior years. So this is certainly not something that we look at as a want as much as it is a need.
Oh, I agree.
So,
I'm asking the question.
no, I understand, Mayor.
And then, somewhere I saw you're anticipating 12 officers. Is that realistic based upon how many you hired this year, that you think you're going to have to hire 12 next year?
Well, based on CIP, we ran the numbers for you a little bit, and so at the moment, among the allocation of 132 officers, we have 113 trained and available officers. Based on the offers and other officers or officer candidates that we either have in the academy or proceeding, that amounts to 19 personnel. So we are really going to, because of the losses, just due to regular retirements, et cetera, the difficulty in hiring. I think we had an outstanding hiring class the last couple of years, so we're really thrilled that our folks that are engaging in the hiring and recruitment have done a great job for us. We're doing a lot better than most cities at bringing in talent. So now we have to take that large group of officers to get them trained. So in the next year, we're absolutely going to be stressing the resources of our field training program. We're thankfully, with Western Iowa Tech, we're able to get a lot of officers into that academy, and their future is somewhat assured because of the closing of Hawkeye Training Academy, so more people in the state are going to be pushing officers towards that. But we're really gearing up. We transferred one sergeant over into the training area to increase their training staff just in anticipation of our needs over the next couple of years. And quite honestly, I'm really thrilled with the recruitment classes we've had and our ability to replace our losses, but those folks, we're about a year away from streeting all of those folks. And again, the training program's going to be very busy.
I get that, but you're training those officers this fiscal year.
Oh, some of them are. So we made 12 offers, and that's based on getting them into academy. So some of those folks will be undergoing training in this fiscal year, but then the next fiscal year in the academies that will follow, we'll have those folks going into those. But the new hiring process is all geared around academy dates.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I know. I'm just trying to figure out if you're buying the uniforms in the fiscal year we're in the next fiscal year, will you hire 12 in that year?
No, I don't anticipate doing that.
But that's what you're anticipating, I think I read somewhere, for uniform purchases.
Well, there's definitely going to be overages.
Well, I know there's going to be
So,
some, I get it,
absolutely.
but you have to have some budget for that right now.
Yes, and what we're anticipating, and we're probably going to have to move money, and we've talked to Teresa extensively, the Professional Standards Division, is not just uniforms, but academy attendance. I mean, when looking at historically, you know, normally a half a dozen officers per year to replace our outgoing losses are what we're kind of used to, so we budget for our 3-year averages. With this big hiring group, we're obviously going to exceed that. We've already talked about moving money in other places in the budget. And I get it, yeah. How do we anticipate? Well, one thing we don't always know is our losses. For those losses that we do anticipate, it's those folks in drop. But then we might have an injury. We might have somebody that hasn't committed to retiring that does retire that's an unexpected loss. So we're really trying to play chess as much as possible to anticipate our losses. Oftentimes we're wrong just because of the unexpected losses. But
I get that. I'm just saying you have in your budget so many officers automatically that you're going to have to spend money for. I realize you've overspent this year.
Oh, yeah.
But going forward, you have money in your budget already. I don't want to add for 12 more besides if we don't have to.
Yeah, I don't anticipate, but I could be wrong. So I
understand, but what do you normally hire in a year?
As I said, a good average to look at would be maybe a half a dozen officers.
Right.
But if you look at just hiring, the way that hiring is cyclic, we have years where we maybe hire 1 or 2 officers, but then we are, in this time, in the officers that were hired in the mid to late 90s, that was a huge hiring group. Those folks are now reaching retirement age, and we're losing those folks. Some of them are staying, and staying longer, which we appreciate, but some of those folks are reaching their pension age, and they're retiring out.
Okay, but I'm just saying, We have,
to look at it.
we just need to look at that.
Yep.
Because
Bring
the
it back to
12
wrap
that
up.
are here, we've already are going to have in this budget.
Yep. So we'll look at that and bring it back to
Okay.
wrap up to see if there's any
Yeah.
opportunity there.
The school district paying us more, Chief?
They always pay the percentage. They pay any increases that occur because of the contracts, then they have to increase those. They own the officers during the school year, and obviously we own them in the summer. Vehicle amortization costs, anything are passed along to the school, so they pay their fair share for those officers in the time that they are working for them.
Does that include ammo and everything?
You know, that would be such a, I don't know that we've ever
I'm just
held them to
asking
that.
how
No,
you determine it.
I don't think we've ever held them to that.
Okay.
I think salaries, benefits, and then the vehicles is primarily, if I'm not correct.
Okay. Anything else? Okay.
Fire Department.
Thank you.
Page 137, Chief Collins.
Hi, good morning. Brian
Morning.
Collins, Fire Chief. Our fiscal year '26 budget did see a increase of approximately 5%. As you know, about 86% of our budget is tied directly to employee compensation. With the assistance of finance, we did do a line-by-line review of our budget, and were able to find some areas that could be reduced. Some notable reductions were anticipated overtime needs. Right now, we are fairly short on staffing due to retirements, long-term injury and sick leave, military leave, those types of things. So those do require some overtime manning. With our new hires coming on within the next 2 months, we do anticipate getting closer to full staffing. So we'll be able to cover those vacancies without the need for overtime. Some other notable reductions we made were some outside training, conventions, that sort of thing that is not, considered essential at this time. So majority of that 5% increase that we saw this year is attributed to employee compensation and the state's share of their GEMT payments. Other increases were increasing costs in turnout gear and other equipment. So we are continuing to aggressively pursue any grants that we can find that can help offset any budgetary needs. Challenges for this next year is going to be just the ever-increasing call volume. A lot of folks just think that we go on these calls, we get back to the station, we're right back in service, and that's not the case. There's a lot of work that goes on before a call and after a call. And so that just takes more time taken away from other administrative duties or, things that need to get done as well, training, that sort of thing. The other challenge is just the uncertainty with the GMT payments, both on the reimbursement side and the payment side. So that's kind of where we're at.
So right now, I just want to state that the GEMT is actually sustaining the ambulance services. So right now, you actually see that there's kind of a credit going back towards the rest of the expenses for fire. This year, the credit is dwindled down because there's a difference, the calculation for the state, the amount that they're taking, their portion is higher. So we're not seeing as much. But it is,
GMT payment?
right, to the ground emergency medical transport, but it is still sustaining. At the time that we put this service into place, we thought it'd be about a $750,000 to $1 million cost per year, and it really hasn't been, so that's been a plus and a benefit for the fire department and the city as a whole.
But here's what's on the horizon that's going to put us out of the ambulance business if it goes through. I'm not being alarmist. When Elon gets done cutting Medicaid, you guys are not going to get that money anymore.
That's
And that's
potential.
going to be a huge hole in the budget of this ambulance service. We talk about what the state does the state does. When the feds do what they're going to do, that's a bigger hole than what you're talking about for all the other things the state have done to us.
And I'm
Put
sure
it
there's
right
other
back to where
services
it
within
was
the
in
city that's
2019.
provided that's tied to some type of federal granting that could also be impacted as well, so.
No question about it. And you can tell me that's not on the chopping block. They aren't going after that first. That wasn't the first place they stopped if they aren't going after that. And that's going to really cause problems for our citizens when that happens. Voting has consequences. And it always has.
So I will add that we do have an improvement request in there to bring back the administrative assistant chief position that we removed back in 2016. That position was vital with administrative functions, emergency planning, accreditation, ISO management, that sort of thing. When Assistant Chief Jim Clark retired back in 2016, it was decided at that time to remove that position and increase the complement within the Community Risk Reduction Office with the Captain Deputy Fire Marshal. While that was beneficial to that division, we did lose a lot of oversight, especially with the emergency planning side. That position was, all the duties that were assigned to that position were basically farmed out to other positions within the department. With the implementation of the EMS transport service in 2018, that's increased the administrative workload tenfold on the current administrative assistant chiefs, or I'm sorry, the operations assistant chiefs and the fire marshal. Just the workload is becoming unsustainable. And not only that, is like I had mentioned with every call that we go on, there's reports that need to be written, reports that need to be reviewed, and those reviews all occur at the operations assistant chief level. Our call volume has increased 44% since 2016, and so that's just that addition. That's 4,000 more calls every year that those reports have to be reviewed and that sort of thing. There's equipment, there's all kinds of administrative functions that need to take place with that number of personnel, and it's now becoming unsustainable. We did an internal staffing study in 2022, and we found that there is help that is needed at that administrative function. So I'm asking you to consider bringing back that administrative assistant chief to help with that administrative workload and to allow the operations assistant chiefs to focus more on their core functions, allow the fire marshal to look at his core functions as well, and just bring that relief to the admin staff. So,
May I ask this question?
yes, sir.
Do you need that high of a level of a person to do the administrative work as opposed to a strictly administrative type person?
There has to be authorities with that position because part of what they will be doing is not only the emergency planning, they will be the city emergency manager for the emergency manager for the city, and they'll work in concert with the Woodbury County emergency manager. But they'll also be doing policy revisions. They will be doing a lot of budgetary work, so they need to have that level of authority in order to make those decisions.
Is this figure correct then? Is that, we're talking 202,000
That is correct.
for that position? Okay, thank you for that
I
answer.
was here in that time frame. I remember it well. They gave up that position to get one or two firefighters.
It was one captain deputy fire marshal.
Yeah, so I know you don't want to hear that, but now you've got cross-trained firefighter, EMTs, all that. We've spent a lot of money doing that. So I'm certain you're not willing to give up one of those personnel to get that position.
I'm not.
Okay, well,
No, it's based on the amount of work. That call volume that constantly doing more and more with less, we're gonna reach a breaking point. And like Wendy attested, if this year's not a good year, I guarantee next year's not a good year, and the year before that, there's never going to be a good time.
Have the, have the calls, you said 44% since 2016?
Correct.
How about like the last couple?
Last year, we usually see about anywhere between a 300 to 500 call increase every year.
Every year, okay.
That's kind of what our been average back in, I didn't need glasses until I started this job, by the way. You know, back in 2006, when I started, we were right at
What about that gray
6,000
hair?
calls. And now
Give
we're,
it more
But
time
in
in your head to
fairness,
look like
those
Jim.
calls are up because you now have
I
ambulance
still got hair.
calls. You now have ambulance calls that you did not have before.
The fire apparatus still went on those calls.
That
I'm not saying the number of
It counts
runs.
as a double call. When
No, it
did
does
you-
not. These are
okay.
incidents. These are not responses, these are incidents.
Your
go to
call-
the same
your
amount of
call
incidents.
volume is up.
Because even,
Is directly
even before,
related to
Mayor,
that.
we sent a fire apparatus to every medical call.
The difference is you have cross-trained people on the fire apparatus now. Is that?
We always had.
Oh,
Since
Yeah, they
2000,
always
since
had.
Or the other way.
2000, we've always had
Oh,
EMTs on fire apparatus.
okay.
Just the only difference before was Siouxland paramedics was the transport. We would typically arrive on scene prior to them. We would hand off patient care, and they would
Right.
provide,
But
you
with
know,
the
patient
paramedic
continuity.
also being the firefighter, they can go open the hydrant or do something like that if they
Correct.
are available. I had that backwards when I said it.
That's something we could bring back for review
Do whatever you want.
with your overall, I mean, see how the overall day goes and bring it back. Could we bring that back then, that request? And we'll see how the whole process today goes.
Well, I was gonna say, Chief, and Jim, I think you guys are doing a great job. I think our crews, I regularly am in contact with the men. And I think you're doing great. I think your statement is exactly correct. We're being asked and asked to do more with less. And I don't know where that breaking point is and how we remedy that. I mean, there's only so much advocating at the state level that I can try to urge and force, and, you know, when the state budget is sitting on a surplus and we are looking at cutting, when we are saying, no, we would much rather add this complement to help us be able to better direct our personnel and better maneuver our people, that makes a lot of good sense to me. But I just hope you direct your men and women to bark up the correct tree. And
Yeah, it definitely takes a collective voice. It can't be just a sole voice. It takes many, so.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's important to note that I just stay in my day going forward, but I think it's important to note that you've taken a fresh look at all of this.
Correct.
As incoming chief, and that's not being critical on anything in the past, it's going forward for me. And you've taken a fresh look at this, and you're making requests that you typically wouldn't make if it wasn't necessary. So I understand that.
Just so we all know, to Alex's point, the state has a surplus of $1.9 billion. And yet, funds are being withheld from city governments to do their job. Not on you, but again, we're sitting here scrapping over $10,000 and $20,000 for essential services, for, you know, high-level IT work that needs to be done that would benefit the city and our growth, and yet we've got $1 billion sitting. It makes no sense. Makes no sense.
And I'll tag on with John Malloy's comment about the GIS. We are starting to use more and more GIS in our field as well, and we're highly supportive of that GIS initiative, so I appreciate him bringing that up.
I also want to thank you for that last department fire that you guys were there overnight, and guys and gals were there overnight. That was just a terrible.
You had to go back too, didn't you?
Yeah, that was just a
We pretty
terrible,
much stayed on
terrible
fire watch
fire.
most of and until that following day, and we helped, you know, great job to the crews of going in there and just at least helping the residents remove some of their belongings.
I saw that. That was very nice.
That speaks volumes of not only our personnel and having that forethought to go in and do that. So it's kind of a, you know, kind of a whole you know,
Circle
service.
of help.
And it's not just about, you know, the emergency mitigation, but all the follow-up actions as well, so.
And also the apartment management, trying to get hotel rooms for those folks who, you know, couldn't go back. I thought that was very nice of them, because a lot of times,
And the I mean, it's
You're just on your own.
not just the fire department too. There's so many other resources that we utilize and external stakeholders such as Woodbury County Emergency Management
Yeah, I
assisted
saw they were on site.
with finding housing for those residents, the Red Cross, the, you know, the local businesses that step forward and helping out where they can. That's very appreciative.
are we getting close to finding out the source of this fire?
It's still under investigation
Okay.
right now, yeah.
And the weather wasn't very cooperative either, but it never is when you're going out on something like that. But I just really appreciated
Thank you.
all the work that was done on that.
Okay, thank
All
you,
right,
Chief.
thank you.
Thank you.
Parks and Recreation, page 189, Matt Salvatore.
Morning, Mayor and Council. Fairly status quo budget again for Parks and Recreation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
What building does he have that went up 79,000? Well, his insurance increased $79,000.
That was charged just to overall administration, but I'm not,
Right, yeah, I know.
I don't know what-
I'm just curious how that,
Yeah, I
what
don't
you
know.
have that went up, oh, I suppose the Expo Center and that?
Increasing values on
Yeah,
property
okay.
values.
I just,
so
that just seemed
drive
like a lot
costs.
in his
yeah,
department.
it wasn't charged in one specific facility. It was
Yeah.
spread out through administration.
Okay.
Where do you see that number, Mayor?
On page 195, general services increased 79,464 in property and building and contents insurance. That's the bulk of his, other than labor, that's the bulk of his increase.
That would include the long lines, too.
Yeah.
That's over all of the buildings.
Yep.
Yeah.
I got you.
No, I know, I wasn't thinking that how many, but if he's got the expo and that's probably realistic, so.
Yeah,
Is that
Expo, Long Lines,
replacement insurance
Ice
then?
Center, Cone Park.
Yeah.
So that's for content, if there's an issue with it. Liability and,
Well, Matt, the one thing I would say is that I appreciate is I think we are moving in a good direction with a lot of these buildings and facilities that you and your team are in charge of being cost effective or neutral, you know what I mean, at best, and really working towards whether it's rentals or whether it's concessions or whatever you can do. I think you have a lean crew. I think, in my opinion, I mean, we've talked about this in this council before, of the need to make sure that we're staying up on the beautification, but also the maintenance and everything of these parks. You know, we're adding on when we have the riverfront, when we have, you know, focus on downtown, when we have all of these additional areas. Dan brings up often, you know, that if we don't have it built in the budget to maintain these beautiful things, they fall to the wayside, and then it's an injustice. Why go down that path if you're not going to properly take care of what you have? And that's where I get really frustrated. So I think we do a good job, but I think you could use additional personnel to maintain these parks. But I think that becomes more appealing when you're working so hard to try to make the overall ask or the overall budget impact less by trying to make them cash flow. And I look to more of that in the future. I know you're analyzing with Siouxland Splash opening up and what that's going to do to our pool system and that overall line item. But, you know, with the improvements that are made at Cone Park, at the Expo Center, at now IBP, you know, all of those additional things, heck, even out at Riverside with the concessions and what you're going to do there. Like, I hope you and your staff are continually looking at not only how can we best manage and run this, but empower your staff and managers that are looking at this and saying, if this was your business, what would you do to make it more profitable? What would you do to increase costs or value or what? And I think that's good.
Yeah, we look at fees annually with our park board. We're going to continue to do that. We just increased some concession prices based on increases that were passed on to us. So those are all things that we look at. We've done a lot of development over the last 10 years, but moving forward, it's going to be more of a maintenance focus. And development will be focused on things that we can do that will reduce maintenance moving forward. And last year, we hired more park seasonals than we ever have, and the budget that we have available in the proposed budget still exceeds what we hired last year. So we're still on the right path.
Well, I look at overall utilization, and I think we've got pretty solid numbers for utilization. I look at, and I'm not sure if this has been shared out, the hire that was recently completed, but that, in my mind, was a huge get. We're looking at taking somebody from a much larger state who looked at what we had to offer here and said, yeah, I'd like to work there. That's a huge get, and I think that speaks to your overall vision for our recreational spaces throughout the city, not just parks. I think your job goes well beyond that. And I really got to applaud you. Anytime I ever have an ask or you must just have multiple calendars in your mind at any given time. I'm like, do we have turf down right now here? And he's like, oh yeah, we have turf down for the next 2 weeks, and then we're switching out to this. And how you manage all of those minute details of all of these facilities never ceases to amaze me. But thank you for your leadership in this role. I'm interested in seeing how, when the water park opens, that does affect our pool numbers. But we're making some really good moves in parks. I know you've grown something really special here, and you should be proud of that.
Yeah, appreciate that. And with our recruitment in our most recent position, we did a national recruitment and we had national interest. We interviewed 10 people from all over the country, and they really wanted to come to Sioux City. They recognized this department in this city and everything that we have to offer, and they were impressed and chomping to be a part of the team.
They must have figured out the honeymoon isn't over yet, right?
Yeah. Still go on. What year is this for you, Matt?
Going on 11.
Number 11.
Yep.
Number 11 out of 30.
And you filled a vacant position, didn't you?
Yeah,
If
the
I recall.
recreation superintendent has been, that position has been accepted. Started April 7th.
Where they're coming from, I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
It says a lot.
Yep.
When you look through this, to the mayor's point earlier, opening comments, you're 5% of the budget.
Yeah, I think we're at total about 10% of cuts that we've made, 78 initially and then another 65 recently. So we've done everything we can.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks.
Admin Services, page 61, Mike Collette.
Good morning. Admin services, as I look at the overall budget summary, there's 4 big things that stick out as far as increases go. Got advertising increase, which we talked about at the legislative meeting in December with the legislators. We've got postage increases. Life cycle of meters replacement went up by $50,000, and insurance costs as well. Those are kind of the big 4 that drive the large percentage of the increase.
Somewhere, I think this is where I saw the credit cards are up. How much? That's yours, but he's got some too.
Well, it gets charged back to that, to.
Department.
Credit card fees.
Well, okay, I saw. Okay, well, that's fine if that's the case, but I saw.
It gets billed out to that,
Oh, here, wait a minute. And the building maintenance has 0 for transit. Zero, and it's been running
Building maintenance direct charges their time to transit, so the allocation of payroll will show in the transit department. They don't do a fund transfer.
But that is a change, I think, on how it's been presented in the past.
Correct.
They directly allocate to it, so you'll see it in their budget under employee compensation.
But it used to be in building maintenance.
Right.
Right.
Showed.
I don't understand. But that's, you guys do those
So it
changes
used
every
to
once
be
in a while.
in
just
building
to throw
maintenance.
us off and make sure that we're reading the book. I
Used to be in building
understand.
maintenance, and you see a revenue that came back in from transit, but now it's actually charged to transit.
So it's taking out one step?
So we're just trying to allocate it appropriately.
It still stands employee,
Yep.
Right.
being direct charge now. Yep.
Sense.
Airport, page 73.
I would like to point out at the airport when, and I agree, the accounting of the airport fund is an enterprise fund, so when the auditor and the negative impacts come up in the initial segment, shows $2 million. But I feel like the fund balance is more representative of our actual operation. In that accounting, there's depreciation and interest and things like that that aren't charged to departments that aren't enterprise funds. So just, it seems like quite a drastic difference being presented sometimes in the accounting version of what the subsidy is versus the fund balance actually being hit on a basis to the airport fund. It's quite different. Insurance as well for the airport, about $70,000 of that 160 increase was insurance. I think Ron took a look at some valuations during the year that drove some of that were probably undervalued in the event we had a claim.
Transit, page 263.
Couple things on transit. I did meet with Sarah and Teresa this week to go through line by line, like they said. And I went back through yesterday myself, and in transit, the operating grant we get from a federal basis is always a little bit of a moving fluid target, because we're talking about 18 months out, and we don't really have those apportionment numbers for a year from now. But I am comfortable increasing the grant projection by $50,000. It's $2.4 million right now. Last year we got $2.5 million. So it will be reflected ultimately in what property taxes are applied to transit. It's just it's difficult to pinpoint. So I'm conservative to some point as far as what I think we're going to get for federal grant, but I'm okay with increasing $50,000 if you want to take that into consideration. The biggest change operationally, expense-wise, would be the paratransit services. We're anticipating a large increase in percentage in rides, so that drives most of the increase.
And we don't have any control over that.
The state Iowa DOT went through with certs, and they are not able to provide some of those rides now and has to fall on Sioux City Transit.
We're obligated by law to do.
We are. To accept, not by law, but if we accept grant funds, we're obligated to provide paratransit service the same hours as the fixed route service by taking that 2 point.
Why do we provide that? Why don't we just provide that?
Which service?
Why don't we provide it internally rather than externally?
Possible, we could. Right now, we contract that out with CERTS to provide the paratransit service. It's always been, it's been looked at in the past, as those costs go up, would we be better served with driver availability? CERTS uses those drivers for both their service and paratransit, so they kind of split some of those drivers. I'm not sure there's 15 more available drivers out there for transit to hire if we provided that service.
Well, they'd be looking for a job.
I was gonna say, wouldn't you retain some of their drivers?
Well, they're their employees, and they use those both for their service and transit.
That's right. I do some of their tax, and I think they're either one side of the house or the other pretty much.
Okay.
Well, I mean, just for them to tell us, here's your bill, without any kind of negotiation,
Now, we do have negotiation with CERTS on what that trip fee is.
Right.
But it's the increased rides for that fee that really was the big change. So this will be a year where we have an option year for starting for FY '26 that we'll be bringing back sometime here in March, April for council's consideration. Because that contract's up.
Not saying we would be good to get rid of that service, but I think it would be good to do a cost analysis to see if we could do that service. That's all I'm saying.
Sure, I agree.
Well,
automatically renew without at least looking at it.
Sure.
And Mike, I appreciate, and you know, I've talked to you a number of different times about this service and what we can do, and I would commend you for, I think you've done a good job analyzing, doing research, proposals, you know, and even had funding looking at what are different programs that are available for this population. How could you better meet the need, whether it was nights and weekend programs, et cetera, et cetera. But I agree with the mayor that it's like, if now is the time to at least analyze that.
Sure.
What does that look like? Because I think, and I'm not saying we could save money, I'm not, but I do think that there's a large population out there that feels really restricted, you know, and unable to get where they need to go due to different processes, due to different time constraints, and availability, even the flexibility of the size of those vehicles, and if they had an additional fleet of, you know, more minivan style or smaller vehicles, what they would be able to do if it wasn't just a fixed route, and if there was some flexibility. Because I know one thing I've talked to you about that always bothered me with this service, as someone that there for a while used this service daily, the need to reserve these rides so far ahead of time, you know, at least 24 hours, and in some cases that doesn't even work, you know what I mean? Like those different things. It's really difficult to kind of plan or have any impromptu, especially when you're dealing with a population like myself that was dependent on care and dependent on their ability to get there and get this person on there or be outside at a certain time. I do think that's a service that could improve, not being critical of them, but just of trying to meet the need for our community and best serve that population. And I would hope that they and their drivers would want to collaboratively.
Sure. I guess a couple of responses to that. We are limited on the charge we can charge for that service. So our charge for that service is double what we have for the max fixed route rate, which is $3.60. So it's set up as you have to call the previous day for a reason, because it really isn't a taxi service. It's not meant to be that convenient because of what we charge for it at the same time.
Because what we charge is more or less?
We charge $3.60 a ride. That's the most we can charge by federal.
For that portion?
For paratransit rides.
Matt, did you say it's double?
We can charge, that's the maximum, because it's double what we charge $1.80 for the fixed route fares for a ride. So we're limited on what we can do, and that's why the service is kind of constrained. So otherwise, it'd be more expensive to run if it was a call the same day and it's an on-demand service. That's a more expensive service.
There's no way to adjust that, right? You can't charge more legally.
Well, you can raise your base rate.
I could raise the base rate.
Which we haven't done for how long?
Yeah, since 2010.
2010, we've not raised the rates.
We're still, I think, the highest in the state, even at that, because we look at those rates for the rides.
How much does it cost to ride from Leeds to downtown?
$1.80.
And $1.80 home.
Yep.
How is the rollout of the new online payment or those things going?
So we'll start that in May, is the projection for the mobile fare pay. That's kind of,
I'm really excited.
yeah, we are too.
How that goes.
Definitely. We did, going back to the fees on paratransit, so I already have put the bug in their ear. Right now, we have two different rates they charge us, depending on what size of a group ride is. And for these additional rides, I've already told them, to me, it'll be somewhere in the middle of that. It won't just jump to the highest cost. So we are starting that negotiation now.
I'm just really wondering how other cities are doing this for less than what we. I wonder, are they getting subsidies from someone?
This grant provides that subsidy. That's what that's meant to do.
Them?
To us.
Well, I'm wondering how other cities, though, you said we're still higher.
We are.
Even without a rate increase for the last
Yep.
14 years.
Yep.
How do they manage a paratransit?
Paratransit is a expensive service. It is.
But you're talking, I'm meaning overall rides.
Yep.
Our $1.80 rate. We have not increased it. So, but you said we're still,
Still are at the highest.
how are these other cities keeping their rate low is what I'm wondering. I'm not saying we're doing something wrong, but
Sure.
finding a source of funds that we're unaware of.
Not aware of anything outside of the federal transit grant money.
The only other paratransit I've ever used is the Rides bus that was up in the Okoboji or Northwest Iowa area.
That would be similar to a CERT service for that area.
Huh?
That would be similar to our CERT service for
Yeah.
that area up there for rides.
That even got cut or limited, I'm not sure, but.
Anything else? All right, we're taking a break.
All right.
I need a break.
Well, since we're taking a break, I just want to acknowledge that your wife was staff member of the month.
Yeah, you're
Don't
mine.
you have all these books for what, 34 years?
All right, we're going to come back and go to Economic and
Bob's
Community
got
Development.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Human Rights,
museum.
page 163. Jessica Ryan.
His museum.
Good morning. So, I'm here for Karen. She is ill, but yes. So, very brief snapshot of our work since July 1st. So far this year, we've received 21 new cases, closed 23 cases, and have 15 open. Karen submitted a budget improvement request for an additional HR investigator. Eventually, we need to add a second investigator or an investigator assistant. On average, we get, sorry, these are not my notes, so I'm trying to do my best. We get lots of calls. Nearly 2/3 of them, 61%, are out of scope, though they still require a lot of time and effort from our staff, even if they are out of scope. We've really increased our outreach with the addition of interns and staff as well. We have pop-up events around town with interns, and the non-pop-up tabling events, that's typically where if we have an intern during that time, we'll send an intern, but we like to be out in the community as staff so that people know us and are familiar with us, and there are about 10 events a year that we do that as well. Education is a huge thing as far as making sure to discourage and eliminate discrimination. So we try to do educational events about 9 months out of the year. We are working on planning those. If anyone has any suggestions or anything that they'd like to see, we'd be open to that. And we coordinate with other agencies for meetings like the NAACP, NOW, SYNC, Growing Community Connections, et cetera. But we understand it's never a good time for an improvement request, but that the work of our office is done by everyone in our office, from clerical assistants, our admin assistant, and then of course me as the investigator. And we understand that with especially our part-time positions, those people are talented, wonderful. I started with the commission in 2016 as a clerical assistant, and
Look at you now.
and look at, well, yes, but that is due to training and investment and a passion for the work. And we've relied on the passion and commitment of part-time staff to get a lot of these cases closed and to get the casework done. And once those people move on, because they have to, whether for financial or benefits, that all of that investment goes with them. And so we have relied, like I said, too much on those part-timers, and that's why we are requesting a second full-time investigator position. Any questions?
Yeah, I have one, not in that area, but I have a real concern that you guys don't follow your budget. In 2024, you had $33,000 worth of general services, and you spent $56,000, some $23,000 more than was budgeted. And in 25 approved, you're way over budget. I don't care if you're an administrative board. We have a budget, and you guys have to follow that budget. And it's unacceptable when the rest of the departments have to comply that you just spend money. And your travel and convention business is so much higher as a percentage than any other department. It's unbelievable to me. And it's bothersome that you go over the budget and nobody holds you accountable for that.
As far as our education and travel, does that include our grant funding? We get quite a bit from HUD to do that.
There is some reimbursement. You can see down below
But
the revenue.
That's beside the point. The tax askings are going up $42,412 because your grant, what you budgeted for grant, I don't know if it's way under or what. Historically, it would appear that you're still asking for $345,000 worth of taxes, even when you collected $96,000.
I'd have to
What was
look
the
at,
budget for for collection on that?
The budget was 323.
What did they, yeah, federal grants were 23,000, and you collected 96.
Your property tax was still up.
Right, right. So you're spending more in property tax dollars than we even budget.
right.
House, it's Karen.
Well, I know, but
No, I know, I'm
Right, no, I
I'm at
understand.
least saying, I
Yeah.
understand, you don't have to have an answer right now.
Ask her to
just
bring it back and
understand
wrap up on what happened. Do you want this to be an item that comes back and wrap up? You can explain why her budget, why her expense.
well, I'm going to make a motion today, whether it passes or not, and then you can still bring it back, but I'm going to move that you cut 18. Listen, this budget is growing 6%, 11.1%. There is no department in this city that gets to grow 11.1%. A 6% increase would still mean that you would cut this budget by $18,409, and I'm going to move that, because we can't have budgets when we have a tax problem growing at 11% a year. And it's just not possible to do that.
I'll second.
Shaner?
Aye.
Scott? Waters?
Well, and I just want to preface it, I understand the cut, and I do think that that's justified. But I would want explanation. I would look at that for wrap up, and understand we'll bring this forward, and Karen can analyze it, you can as well, and look what that comes from as far as travel or what would be impacted. It's not necessarily, because I understand your plight too of as far as cases and an investigator, and I know you're a lean team, but we have to look at, well, what is being increased and why is it budgeted this way versus why are we actually spending X, that type of thing. So I understand the mayor's point, so aye.
Moore?
Aye.
O'Kane?
Aye. Then I would ask, what safeguards do we have in place to make sure this budget doesn't get spent more than, I mean, this were the fire department to be on the chief.
Are they submitting their budget every month?
Well, I just want somebody in the finance to tell them, you can't spend any
Right.
more in this area. That's
They have to turn their budget in to be able to do that.
I don't know what they do at the board or the commission meetings. They should be presenting a budget to them to let them know where they're at for expenses. That's a requirement.
Yes, that we do that quarterly.
And your board doesn't say anything when you're way over budget?
I don't, I mean, it hasn't come up. And what line item was that we were?
Well, general services is the bulk of it, and it's, majority is that you're spending way more in city business, promotions, and advertising than what we budget.
So that will be brought back, and we'll request that as a wrap-up item.
I will say before you go, number one, thank you for being here. Thank you for coming here. You had no responsibility to do it. Very
now
last
you're just
minute.
like, look, I should have said no one's here, never mind. Yeah, exactly.
You're like, I'm
Sorry,
never
if you're
doing that
sick, no one's
Yeah.
coming, forget it.
I do want to echo one thing that you said, and that is simply that we are going to eventually need an investigator. We are going to have to make that addition at some point in time. I don't know, but I anticipate there's probably going to be more cases in this next year, and probably even more cases the year after that. I anticipate a trend going upward, and having at least an additional individual to help share that load, I think, is imperative that we examine eventually. Although the budget is getting tighter and tighter every year, and that talk becomes tougher and tougher, I appreciate that you still brought that up today, because it is something that we need to look to the future to be able to fill that position, to really set our city up to be able to keep up with the number of complaints we receive.
Absolutely.
And I also want to thank you for your part in hosting a lot of the hot initiatives like tenant rights, and that just came up at our meeting last week. So thank you for that too.
Look forward to that in April again.
I want to thank you, too,
Could
for
you-
being here
Before
today.
you go, could you
That
go
was really
over,
helpful.
you made a statement that a lot of these calls that come in, they're really not conducive to your office, but yet you guys help them, or can you talk to me about that?
Sure. So sometimes people, we're sometimes a catch-all. So if somebody doesn't really, if it doesn't fall under Iowa Workforce Development, for example. Somebody thinks that they've been wrongfully terminated. Well, they'll call us and say, I've been wrongfully terminated. Okay, is it due to discrimination? Because I was an at-will state for employment, and so unless you're fired for a discriminatory reason, or you believe you've been fired for a discriminatory reason, then there's nothing. So.
A recourse, I guess.
Right. But people still feel wronged. It's not fair. So trying to talk through things like that with them so that they understand that unfortunately this doesn't fall under our scope, but you may need to talk to a private attorney. If you have a union that represents you, you can file a grievance with them. So things like that. Sometimes too, a lot of our housing calls will fall out of our scope because they are landlord-tenant problems. My landlord turned off the heat, or won't service my air conditioner, or he's not making repairs. Well, you need to talk to inspection services, or find a different place to live, unfortunately, in some cases, depending on whether or not they had those services when you moved in.
So maybe
Yes.
streamlining some of those calls that kind of turn more into listening.
Yes.
And perhaps a little counseling, and of course the education piece. I mean, I see they're multi-layer, depending on the call, but, maybe streamlining that, so, because you're saying many hundreds of these calls are coming.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
The thing is, we never want to kind of rush people off the phone, because sometimes it starts with he won't repair my air conditioner, he's not doing repair, this, that, or the other. And then it gets to, and also they said this egregious thing to me that was completely within the scope of what we do. So sometimes we have to allow people to tell their story to get to what it is that they're really calling about. And also, some of these things are very sensitive. So if we're talking about sexual harassment or sex discrimination especially, that's not something you're just leading with. So, for example, yesterday I had a call that was, I want to say, we track the time on our calls now too, so we understand. It was almost a 40-minute phone call, and she had to tell a lot about what was happening just for herself to process before getting into the actual reason for her call. And it was within our scope. The first maybe 35 minutes were not, but those 2 minutes were.
And that's just calls. And if I can just share my own personal experience, sometimes you get a council member that's like, I know you need to talk to this department, and they bring somebody to your office. And so I had the benefit of sitting in and going through that whole interaction with Jessica as she kind of examined a person's story and picked apart what some of the root causes were. And then I witnessed what I think you would deem a warm handoff. Well, these are the people that would really be best suited to help you. They're just downstairs. Let me take you down to their office and explain the situation. So sometimes it's ill-informed council members in office visits that are happening as well.
I would guess we have other departments in the same boat, such as planning and zoning, get calls like that. And I'm sure the city manager's office just gets a ton of calls. Direct them to the right.
Direct traffic,
direct traffic to the right people, so.
And I think the worst feeling for anyone is if you feel like you've been wronged and then I'm calling someone who's supposed to help me and they're kind of rushing me off the phone, or what is it you need? That is not a very reassuring feeling if I'm already facing something. So we try to really be patient with our callers and anyone that we encounter, because this is a difficult climate anyway. So.
One last thing that I would say to this point is I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I think that that's important for people to be heard, and then hopefully you get to the core issue and whether you're able to assist or you're able to direct them to the correct city department. I think that's important. I don't necessarily think it needs to be you or always has to be you.
No.
Sometimes it's not applicable, but I'm always happy that we have people that are willing to do that, because I think it's customer service to a large degree, and I think anything we do to direct people is important. But with that in mind, so this is the other side of that, is to the mayor's point and to what the vote's point was, I think, is that a prioritization needs to be made of saying, okay, well, this is what's really important and essential to our service. This is not. and saying like, okay, well, we don't need to, if the expense is the travel or the additional education opportunities or those, what are most important? And if you deem those essential, are there other areas that could be tapped that could then assist with that or lead those types of things so that it's not impacting your budget or adding to it, but you're complemented by working with inspection services or human resources and the inclusion position, those types of things, to be able to benefit your budget overall and stay within your budget, but then also still meet the need of the community to inform them of those things. Because I'm not saying those aren't equally as important either. Like, I think all the time about these tenant issues and these rental issues. Trust me, it's on my mind way more than I ever care to think about. But maybe it's not your wheelhouse. Maybe, and it somewhat is, but maybe it's not what your priority needs to be. And focusing on these other things can better balance your budget. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that a 5-0 vote? Is that what the result was?
Correct. Economic and Community Development, page 101, Marty Doherty.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
Morning.
Moving along pretty fast this morning. That's good.
When you have no money to play with, Marty, or no money or ability to do anything, it's a gift and a curse, I guess.
That's right.
So regarding the Economic and Community Development Department, the budget that you have before you is a stable kind of status quo budget. No major increases were requested this year. I would mention that we have more or less completed the reorganization process that we started a couple of years ago. We am happy to say that we have filled all of our open positions in economic and community development. We have retirements and people leave, and that will continue to happen, but we've been able to find good people, and that's helped us a lot and will help us going forward. We have some new people and some new positions. They're learning their jobs, but I think they're doing very well. So we do face some challenges, some headwinds. Obviously, the need for housing and so on, we've talked about in the CIP, homelessness issues, some potential federal changes or state changes. We don't know what we'll see yet on the federal budget. Obviously affects our budget quite a bit, and some state changes in the economic development area we're kind of waiting to see. But I think our staff shown a remarkable ability to take on these challenges. We're continue to work on greater efficiencies in things like plan review and the development process, addressing homelessness and those issues that we've taken on a difficult task, and taking advantage of all the opportunities we have in economic development for growth. I think we have an exciting year ahead. We've got water park coming in, a lot of, made some good acquisitions of properties. We're seeing some great progress. So I think we had a great year coming ahead. All the division managers are here to answer any specific questions that you might have about the budget.
I don't have any direct questions. I would just say that I'm happy that all positions have been filled. I think that that's a good thing, and I think that hopefully we can move forward in a meaningful way and just really see what that potential is. And I think all of your departments are functioning really well. I commend all them for it. I would say you have a team of workhorses behind you, that's for sure, and they are doing a lot of heavy lifting in this community in their respective areas, and so I really, really appreciate all of you.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
I'd like to ask Darrell a question about, from time to time, we'll have comments made that there are more inspections to be made than there are inspectors. How has that leveled out for you in the last few years, doing the inspection? On the rental properties, is that still in every other year period, or could you give me a review of that, please?
When we first started this, some of them had never been inspected, or it had been 20 years. We got that, once we got the proper staff in place, we brought that down to once every 4 years. In the last couple of years, we've been down actually less than every 3 years to be able to make it through, which has dropped our rental complaints significantly because we're able to move forward and get to those before they become issues or problems.
Excellent. So you said it's every 3?
It's actually just a little under every 3-year average right now. We have some big ones that are always problems. You know, we're there probably almost continuously, if you will. You know, they're buildings that were retrofitted and they have a ton of units in it, and the turnover is great, and so is the repairs and damages that go along with that. We're working on one right now that it's been almost a year since the rental inspection first took place, and we're still trying to get all those repairs completed. So it's an ongoing task sometimes with them, so.
That a pretty
And I wanna
populated,
Sorry?
that really a densely populated building?
Fairly densely populated, yes.
And I wanted to thank you on the red tag hearings we have, how well you work with the owner and give, I mean, you just really bend over backwards to make it work so they can save their property. And we've seen where sometimes they just can't fulfill the promises, and you handle that very well too, so I appreciate that.
Daryl, while you're up here, were you finished, Dan? While you're up here, I would just echo some of Dan's comments. I would commend you for getting that time period down on rentals, but maybe with the exception of homelessness, I think of rental properties next, you know, out of your team as far as my concerns for the community, because I wish I had better numbers of our rental situation, rental versus ownership compared to our peers across the state. But when I go through different neighborhoods and I see the number of units in these places and I hear the stories about the status of them, it breaks my heart. Like my mom, I think I've talked to you about this before. My mom worked the census this last time around, and she was floored. She said the places that you would think would be owner occupied were not, you know, they were in fact renting. And the places that were rentals and were broken into multiple units, she was terrified to think that people were living in those situations. And I don't know how to hold people accountable. It's a lucrative business, and I in no way am making a blanket statement. There are individuals, there are landlords, there are renters that do it right, that really care about their tenants and care about their properties, and there are others that get a really bad rap and make it unsavory and take advantage of populations. And I honestly just don't know what more we can do as a governing body to try to turn that tide.
Some of those some of the conditions are very difficult to chase and or enforce. A lot of them are illegal rentals. They're not registered rentals, so we have to chase those. We probably do over 1,000 of those a year. At the same time, we'll have 1,000 of them fall off because they were sold on contract. If they sell them on contract, most cases, the way the contracts are written, they're never going to be able to pay that contract off because there's a big balloon payment at the end of it. So really all they're truly doing is renting the property. And there's nothing that we can do to enforce that. Now, if it's a visual that we have on the outside of the property for cleanliness or what have you, you can see we've increased a lot of categories over the last couple of years where we increased our code enforcement. And we're cleaning those properties up as we can, as we're able to, and whether it's a rental or not, at least that portion of it is. But the safety of the interior of the building, if it's not a registered rental, it becomes very difficult for it to do. We're running into some issues right now where I'm working with legal feels that there's a clause in our municipal code currently that would allow us to red tag these houses that are not registered properly. Boy, I don't know. Mayor, you remember the days when there was 200+ red tags on the list. I don't ever want to get to that, and I got this bad feeling that that's what this would turn into. I truly believe the red tag list is there for a reason, and that's public safety. And is there an element of public safety in the fact that it's not registered? In some cases, absolutely there is. It's not minimum housing standard. In other cases, it's just stubbornness on the owner of the property that doesn't want to do it.
I was going to say, it seems like that would get their attention or hold their feet to the fire, but that might not be the right mechanism.
You know, and
Not as easy a business either. I mean, we're down to one. The only thing that we didn't pass the last time on an inspection was the CO2, which we didn't have to have back before, and smoke alarm. And the smoke alarms we always have, but they disappear. So it's not, I mean, even when you try to do what you're supposed to do, and I'm not blaming our renters, we have two great renters, but somehow a smoke detector disappears, and then you get written up, which is fine, because they give you so long. I showed them the receipt, and we go back in, but it's not as easy as you think, you know, a tree falls on a fence, you gotta go get a tree trimming guy and all that. I think we have some very bad landlords, but I think your inspections would prove that at least the majority of landlords are trying to do the right thing.
There are some more regulatory issues that are coming down that we have. I'm trying to get rid of the silly ones on the councils that I sit on, but there are some ones that are coming, and fire smoke alarms are one of them. It's going to be a sealed 10-year unit. You can't take the batteries out of it. So the only thing that's going to happen is if the tenant takes it off the wall. You know, most recently, we just had a fire department complex here a couple days ago, and walking through that complex, we had a rental inspection there not that long ago.
Exactly.
And we walked through there, and I'm looking at plates where smoke detectors should have been, and were there when we passed it. But unfortunately, they were gone. Now, fortunately, nobody got injured in that, other than there was an animal, I believe, that was lost. But other than that, you know, it's very dangerous. And if that would have been in the middle of the night and people were sleeping and there wasn't smoke alarms in that, it could have been a whole different story.
They need a 9-volt battery, your smoke detector comes
Go in there first. Yeah, that's why the law changed to permanently sealed 10-year unit.
Rack wired?
It can be, it depends on, if a building does not have a hardwired units and there's a loss of occupancy or change along the occupancy, then they would be required to bring it up. That's how
My
we
home
get
are
rid of the ones that are not hardwired. Anything new has to be hardwired, yes.
Mine are hardwired, and not a new home by any means, but I appreciate that. I like.
Absolutely.
that.
And the fact when they're hardwired, they all go off instead of just one.
Well, and some of them, like the ones that automatically inform emergency services, you can actually get a discount off your insurance for too. So one of those things that maybe include that. I know the fire department has their smoke detector, you know, that they push for, that they get grant money for. That might be a good education piece, is like, hey, if you can afford to upgrade the smoke detector that you're using to one and can save you a little bit of money on your insurance, on your homeowner's insurance for some of the homeowners, that might be a solid.
Daryl, does
Whereas they're not creating the problem, but.
the fire department has a great program with the smoke detectors. They don't, that's not just single-family dwellings. Would it apply to apartments? Do you know if their
They have
program
put
does?
some apartments. I don't know the exact terms of their agreements, we're giving those away. Most of them are single-family dwellings, but they have had some apartment dwellings where they do that. It's, you know, being the fact that it's the landlord's responsibility to make sure those are in there, they're collecting rent, they're getting revenue on it versus somebody that's living in a house that's not theirs. Obviously, they may not have the means to put them in, and I understand the reason for that program. But there have been a few of those, but typically it's a single-family dwelling that's owner-occupied.
And then just one more comment I wanted to make. I'm a little surprised when you mentioned the contract sales.
Yeah.
You know, that shifts the whole responsibility to the contract buyer, because first of all, contracts have to be filed for record at the courthouse. Secondly, it shifts that insurance, and if the buyer doesn't have insurance on the house.
Unfortunately, a good portion of the ones that we run into are contracts with people that just absolutely do not understand it. They have no.
That's really a dangerous area.
A lot that aren't recorded either. We find a ton. People come in our office versus.
They just don't record them.
They have to record them.
Yeah.
Well.
To be valid,
They have to
yeah.
record them when they need to.
Well,
I was
know
gonna-
what you're saying.
Yeah, the county attorney, no, they're the ones that enforce that and put the penalties on it.
I was going to mention one thing about rental permits. We don't allow anyone to participate in any of our programs unless they are permitted. So we work as a team. We send quite a few over to inspections to get permitted. So I should track that actually, how many we catch, but.
I do want to note, in this budget, Jill had notified us that the $50,000 for the warming shelter that's funded out of the general fund was continued to be included in this budget. It was only approved for 1 year, so it will come back as an item that needs a technical change during wrap-up for you guys to vote on.
Which one is that again?
Good catch.
On page 111.
110.
What is it? What? Which item?
Up on the top left.
Up to payment to other agencies. That item was approved last year as a one-time item.
Right.
And it remained in the budget. It wasn't removed. I don't know if that's because of the timing. When it occurred, we were just in the process of making that pay. I'm not sure exactly why, but that will be removed or brought back to wrap up, to request to remove it. So we appreciate Jill notifying us of that.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. Thank you, Marty.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Renee? I'll see you Monday.
was my one
I'll see you Monday.
Okay.
Clock Tower.
Wastewater and Environmental Services, page 273, Tom Pingle.
Tom Pingle, Utilities.
I got one before you start.
Yeah.
Your 23,733, and I know you need that, I'm not naive, but what does it cost to rent one a month?
For the improvement request for the
Yeah,
scissor lift?
Scissor lift.
We haven't rented one in a while.
Not that bad by the month, that's what,
I can get those costs for you.
Well, you can sometimes make a deal, which you're not bound by the contract. I don't want her to think we're locking, but you can sometimes make a deal with those where they'll apply the rent after a year.
Yeah.
And I'd like you to at least look at that.
That's like a long-term as-needed type
Well,
thing?
you rent them by the month, and then they'll give you like an option at the end of the year to buy it.
Purchase.
And give you a little bit of credit for rent.
Yeah.
And that would save us a little outgo.
That's a great
And
idea.
you might be able to see how often you're using it or what you.
Yeah. Then we could, if it breaks, maybe we can get help from them or something like that. So that's a great idea.
Just look into it at least, that's all.
Okay.
We'll see, and I wondered about this too. I asked Matt Salvatore about, it was a completely different piece of equipment, but I knew that they needed it, and there was another department using an exact similar piece, and I asked about, them sharing use of it or what that would look like, and it didn't work for that. But as far as this and a scissor lift need, I just wonder if we have any others in the city that aren't as utilized, you know what I mean? And then you almost share, where it's like, hey, are you using this for now? I need it for this job for these next 2 weeks or what? And it's all in an effort to, Teresa's making
I
a face.
actually don't know if we have any others in the city.
Well,
I'd
the
have to
other
look.
problem
I'm not
that
sure.
you have is scissor lifts are heavy, and so you're gonna have a guy load it, unload it, and the time and the cost of that for what they rent, they're not that expensive by the month, because we rent them all the time.
I wish I knew. I just don't know if anybody else even
I don't know
has.
what you'd have it.
That's fine. I just,
MG too.
maybe to the mayor's point, I mean, my point is, if you need it, you need it. But are there creative ways to address that need without purchasing?
That's great.
And we'd have to bid this out, but depending on size, the cost to rent a scissor lift is between $1,000 and $2,000 a month. Or between $300 and $600 a day.
Better than that. If
Yeah, that's what I said.
If you do a
Bid
year
out.
deal,
How
you'll.
much is it to
you'll-
buy it?
Huh?
How much is it?
22,000. But again, if you go to them and bid it out as how much rent would you apply it into the year?
Yeah, we'll certainly look into that.
I'll
That's a
check
great idea.
PMG too to see what they have.
Yeah, if you're gonna get one, you wanna make sure you are gonna use it, because they charge you every time you take one in and out. It's $300.
So CMG sometimes has like a pool of items that they rent out. I'll ask too if they have one and how often it gets utilized, because I don't either. I'll just make
See,
sure.
that's what I wondered.
Make
because
sure we
I
don't
was
have it, because if it doesn't get used a lot, maybe it's something we could transfer over to them, for them to have, and people could utilize it, but stationed there full-time. I'll check,
That's
make sure.
exactly what I was kind of wondering, because it's
Right.
like, geez, I can't imagine they don't need that at Tyson or at other places.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That it's like, gosh, if you have one and you spread that cost, but you don't all need it at once.
How high does this one go?
We're looking at one that goes 20, I think it's 15 to 20 feet.
Yeah, see, the Tyson one's gotta go they're
Right.
big.
Yeah.
They got, they're huge, they're really expensive.
Right now, we have to set up scaffolding or put guys on ladders. We had a ladder incident this year, so.
Oh, they're more efficient by far.
So the overall administration, services, wastewater treatment plant budget, environmental services, and the renewable fuels budget is an increase of almost a little over 1%. Improvement request, we are asking for the scissor lift that we just discussed, a snow blade for removal of snow at the wastewater plant. If you've ever been out there, there's a lot of area to remove snow and
That
ensure
blade,
safe.
what would that go on?
Bobcat.
It's going to go on a Bobcat.
Oh, on a Bobcat.
I did have a question about that, because Parks and Rec did have a request for a box plow attachment for parks maintenance. So is this going to be just 100% utilized by wastewater?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So you wouldn't be able to loan it out at all?
Well,
We don't have a trailer big enough to
Yeah,
carry,
it'd be a little different, but,
but if folks need it, I mean, it's there.
okay.
And on your Bobcat, are you talking?
Like a Bobcat.
Bobcat with a bucket, that type of
Curious,
Bobcat?
because I was pulling up
Is that what
pictures of it, and it looked like it had a rake on the back.
Side by side, or at least a couple?
That's what we call it.
Yeah, we have
I
one.
see at least one that runs around.
Yep.
And it's like, I wonder what's more cost effective. Like my dad has a blade on his side by side, or you can get a blower or a brush on it or something.
Yep. The side-by-side's always being used by somebody to collect samples or do other regulatory things. So we can look at that, but most likely,
I've never, well, I guess, I was gonna say, I've never
On a
driven a
street
Bobcat.
like that, you want the Bobcat, it's much more powerful, and there's no question. That would be are you gonna, what are you putting, a snow, what do they call it, snow nose or whatever on?
yep, a big, yep.
Yeah, they're meant to do streets, a side-by-side's only gonna get sidewalks, basically, if you're lucky.
We also requested but removed a CMM, a parts coordinator. We asked for it last year and removed it, and we also removed it this year. This is in anticipation for the additional parts that we're going to have and manage when Phase 1 comes on. So next year I'll bring it back and see what your guys' thoughts are on that.
But next year, you're probably going to need it for sure.
Yeah, it's quite the undertaking. One of our admins who retired this year helped quite a bit in the parts management. So we're hoping to get a full-time person to be able to manage all the parts, all the tickets, and what's
Yeah.
done and what's not.
What's been sent out for repair, what's coming back, where is it?
Correct. Yep. We are the largest purchasing department. You know, we have to purchase all kinds of equipment and parts all the time, so.
I have a lot of dates in my head. When's the Phase 1 start again, Tom? I can't remember.
Phase 1 construction starts tentatively January 1st of '26, and it will end end of the year 2030. Yep. Renewable fuels, I know this gets asked quite a bit. In the last 4 years, the gross revenue of our biogas was $4.6 million. Net revenue is $3.05 million. We are still waiting on another $500,000 check from our broker for the volunteer biogas that we have stored. Notable increase you'll see is in our environmental services line. That's due to our agreement with Gill Hauling on CPI. So every year we have to go, according to our agreement, look at the CPI and adjust trash. The floor is 3% and the ceiling's 5%. This year is a 3% raise. The CPI was 3.1. We'll be bringing that to council in the next few months.
When's that up for bid?
That bid last year. It's a 10-year agreement. Yep.
Why we went through all the transition.
Yep. Which last year when we did bid out with Guild, our trash went down about a quarter of a dollar. This year, it's pretty much recouping that quarter back.
You got a lot going on.
What's that? Sorry.
You have a lot going on.
Yeah, yep. But everybody does. So it's just not me. But it makes it fun, that's for sure.
Life is not boring.
Okay. Water
Thank you,
and
Tom.
Thank you.
Water and underground utilities, page 283, Brad Pitts.
Everyone, Brad Pitts,
Morning.
Utilities Director.
Morning.
I don't have anything specific, other than I think, with all of the reductions, we're sitting at about 87,000 for both water plants and underground, both water and sewer. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Actually, your reductions are quite a bit more than that.
Okay.
So he's a little bit over 100,000, so I just want to give him credit for that, the before and the after. So it was 83,000 and then 28,000.
Okay, I saw the 83, and with the reductions we discussed, I thought it was 87, so thank you.
Good.
You getting that street fixed out there?
Yep, contractors started on, what is today, Saturday, on Wednesday, I believe. So they started actually on Lynn with the damaged sanitary sewer. We asked them to start there, so they got that opened up, they got it contained, and now they're working on that fix before they start on the ridge portion of it.
Where'd you tell us not to drive?
It's closed now, so you don't have to worry about it. It's off the hint.
It had a, what, a 26% grade or something?
Yeah.
All right.
No matter what your vehicle is, right?
Public Works, page
Welcome.
241.
So this department will be between Tom, Pingle, Brad, and myself for any questions. CMG for myself, Tom will follow engineering, and Brad with field services.
I mean, the dream team.
That's right.
How much
I
are we
agree.
gonna carry over on snow removal? Any idea?
We can get that for you. I know that we always purchase salt up front, so that's but obviously we
we're not
our salt shed, so we can use it from year
Well,
to
I
year.
know,
So
but that reflects in next year's budget.
right,
If you don't use it, you can reduce.
correct. Yep. We'll take a look at the budget where it's at right now and bring it back to wrap up, so we can.
It's road use fund, so it's not gonna save tax dollars probably.
But we did use $1 million worth of road use funds that balance, so that helps in future years to continue to grow that fund so that we don't ever have to go into the general fund. So we are still cognizant on that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know, because it'd be helpful to have a larger carryover.
One question I had, it's a very random thing that jumped out to me, was the number of units being sold on Gov Deals just seemed drastically lower.
It is quite a bit lower. I talked to Jeff about that. We actually, last year was quite a bit lower because we didn't have anybody in that role. So this year, you'll see an uptick. We had, for instance, we had 10 police vehicles sitting there that just hadn't been sold. We just used, actually, one of Brad's employees that was on light duty to remove all the decals and sell it. So in '25, you'll see an uptick of those, kind of off. We just didn't have enough people to get that stuff on. We were short mechanics. We're still short 2 mechanics. At one point, we were down 5 mechanics. So it's been kind of a struggle in the past. The mechanics had done that work. Now we're trying to utilize those people that are on light duty potentially. So the vehicles kind of sit out there until we are able to get to them to remove those items. So
But you're selling those on Gov Connect now, you're not having an auction anymore.
on Gov Deals, correct. But he was saying on Gov Deals, the number has went down, and I agree it has. It's just because we've had what we call a graveyard of vehicles out there that needed to be sold. So we should see a large, an uptick of them this year.
Or is it better to put them
So they
have an auction?
They don't let you keep them on very
Yeah, usually it's 10 days to 14 days that they, on average, they sit there.
What do you get for one of our cruisers?
Well, it depends. And lately, they've not been in the best condition. So depending on the condition, sometimes they're minimal and sometimes better. We've had a lot of accidents you've seen, so we don't get as much for them as we have in the past when they're accident-free. We don't tend to get them that are not, aren't being replaced due to an accident or an incident anymore. So those are usually yield higher, but it's been a while since we've had one of those. Last year, we had 9 that were incidents. Yeah, I mean, yeah, not much. We don't get much out of them.
Like $500 or?
Yeah, usually 1,000, I mean, we might get 1,000 or 1,500 bucks.
Well, the ones that are wrecked
Scrap yards.
go down to, I would guess that they either go down here or they go to Council Bluffs. I can't think of that guy down in Council Bluffs, but he buys a lot of buses and cars.
Oh, yeah.
What is the name of that salvage yard? I can't even think.
Well, and I thought Shine up in Spencer maybe, but no.
That's not one I've seen.
Yeah, no, I can't think. I went to a bus auction one time in Omaha, and that guy in Council Bluffs, what the heck was his name? Anyway, he bought 23 buses that day, and the lady said, well, you got to wait till we get the titles done. He said, I could care less about the titles. They'll be scrapped before you get me the titles, because that's what he was going to do, was scrap them out. So, yeah, he buys a lot of that stuff. But there'll be people that'll buy those simply because some of them are four-wheel drives and that. And
Some of them are.
they'll buy them, a scrap yard will buy them just so that they've got parts and that. But if you ever go on those websites, they have about everything you want.
Jewelry. I've seen.
Traffic engineering, page 253.
Patrick can probably discuss that a little bit. Kurt is in charge of, well, that depends on what it's for. I would.
Well,
or
I was just wondering if you could just walk me through the services related to property, and I know you've got it foot, what that is or what?
We might need to bring that back to you, Dan. I don't know exactly who.
What's that?
On page 253, traffic engineering services related to property, they have 295,000. But it's
letter B
footnoted.
down below.
Yeah, it's footnoted. And I read through that, but I'm not sure I understood it. So, but if we could bring it back, if that's what you want to do, that's fine.
I think that portion of it may be Gordon.
This was funded out of the CIP.
Yeah.
So it should have, this is the one that has revenue offset, right? So when we get insurance claims, we used to run it through a CIP with the insurance revenue. Now we run it through their operating budget.
When you get a pole hit.
Like when somebody hits a pole.
You.
Yep. Yep, and they pay for it out of here, but then they would get their revenue offset for the insurance too, if they have insurance. They don't necessarily always have insurance, but if they had it, you would get it out of here. So that's a large increase.
What difference does that make, whether it's CIP or
Well,
operating?
I shouldn't say it was CIP. It was a project, and then we would clean it up later.
Oh.
So it wasn't necessarily,
But it was in the CIP plan.
yes, it was the CIP plan. Yep. It was still funded by road use. So for us, it's not technically, we're not bonding for it, so it made sense to put it back in operating. We're using their fund balance anyways. So it's just one less step again for us to follow, but that's a huge chunk of that. And then we do have significant, we go through spurts where we have people that hit poles, and some of them are very expensive. If they have a transformer on them or whatever, they can be upwards $40,000, $50,000, so they're pretty expensive.
I have a question. You don't have a surveyor, but you're buying survey equipment.
Land surveyor?
Huh?
Talking about a land surveyor?
251. Why are we buying survey equipment if we don't have a?
Oh, I don't know if that's just, it's a surveying and
Oh, professional
equipment.
services, it says.
No.
That might just be an error. We'll have to look into
The
that.
land surveyor is, but read down, and then we're gonna buy $7,500 in equipment for surveying. Well, if you don't have a surveyor, why are you buying surveying equipment?
Well, it says surveying and inspection equipment, so we'll clarify that to make sure that
Probably
it's
to
not.
measure those sidewalks down to the 1/8 inch.
I will say that we did.
I'm pretty sure.
The land surveyor has been empty vacant for 6 years. So we worked with Tom and Gordon, and it hasn't been advertised for 5 years. It's a position that's really difficult to fill. So we've moved the budget to professional services, but we looked at the average that we've utilized, and we were able to reduce their budget significantly because we don't use the full budget. So it's like a $111,000 position, and I think on average we use $35,000 to $40,000. So we took that was a part of the decreases you see here, and we'll be updating the complement, and that will come back as a technical change.
Kind of telling, though, that we haven't advertised for the position for 5 years.
Find one.
Yeah, they're
Well, you
just,
can't find one if you don't advertise for it, though.
I guess they're very, very difficult to find. They're nearly impossible to find. It's like,
What they're doing makes more sense because you don't do a lot of survey in the wintertime. and
Right,
so
I
that
agree. I'm
person would sit in and do tasks below their skill level in the wintertime.
Right, I don't disagree with that. I think we should just have
And I
a
think-
contract with a company
we do
that
now.
contracts a surveyor to be at our,
So after 6 years, it's kind of proven that what we're doing is working. And so we don't need that full-time position. And we have a lot of room to grow. If we need quite a bit more, I mean, we're only at a third of what their
Anyway.
budget is.
okay, good.
Give me that 7,500. The other thing is 40,000 for blank computer replacements. Is that just around the departments on page 257?
Oh, yeah, that's just the department replace. So this is just the replacement fund.
Yeah,
It'll-
no, I
yep.
know. I just was wondering where those computers are going, that's all.
What line is that, Mayor?
No, right there on A, 40,000.
I will say, I want to note that we did make some changes in the fleet budget. So with the mechanics that we have a full-time mechanic at the fire department and a full-time mechanic at the police department. They now will automatically be allocated out to police and fire. They do not run through fleet services. We still bill out their, all of the billing, or not the labor, just the parts, but they are there full-time. They never come to CMG, so if they don't have full time hours, they're still getting billed to police and fire because the service isn't being provided at CMG. So we've cleaned that up quite a bit. We are in the process of looking at that position to determine if it needs to be like a public safety auto mechanic. They have certifications that are required for them for fire, and it would make sense to clean that up and look at those positions. So we're doing that right now and determining if we need to create a public safety auto mechanic position.
Or if we're talking auto mechanic for public safety, and I know this is probably a long shot, but a lot of the like specialty wiring for lights and sirens and things like that, a lot of that stuff we have to send out.
We do.
Are we including that in the position if they're going to be dedicated to those officers?
Probably not.
Probably,
I
and it's
say
a
that.
long shot that we'd be able to capture somebody.
Well, I say that because they'll get their oil changed on the monthly. I mean, so just maintaining the vehicles is significant.
It's a lot.
I mean, they put on, the vehicles, they only keep the vehicles for 2 to 3 years, and they'll put close to 100,000 miles on them in 2 to 3 years. So he can barely keep up just maintaining the basics, putting new tires on them, those type of basic things. There are still items that come to CMG because he only has one bay. He can't use up his bay for a day or two to work on a piece of equipment, plus he gets that far behind. So there are still items like alternator work, those types of large items.
Well, and sometimes their garage is used up because they just have things stored in it too.
Well, yeah, he just can't keep
Yeah,
his garage
they're
full
big.
for 2 days.
Yeah.
While he's got a vehicle apart.
And Burnham.
And Teresa, you and I spoke about this, but I mean, I talked to my lead mechanic where I take my van to get my oil changed and stuff like that, because they were saying they were having such high turnover on mechanics as well, and just,
It's
I mean,
hard.
he was just saying that it's really tough to keep good help, and it was like, the mechanics were getting younger and less experienced, and my van is pretty complex, so it's like, I worry about that stuff all the time. But anyway, my point is, I hope, whether it's whoever, representing utilities or city staff or whoever would do that, I would really encourage us to, whether it's career fairs, whether it's intentionally reaching out to those schools. I mean, my dad, he was in law enforcement for 39 years, but he graduated from Northwest Iowa up, what is it, Nyack, what they call for auto mechanics.
So Janelle and I have really talked about, we really probably need to get to the high school level. Because by the time they get.
You have a unit right up here on Lewis, you know what I mean, that they're training these people.
So by the time that they get into the WIT, those groups, that usually a business has snatched them up and they're paying to send them to WIT. So when you reach out to WIT, so Janelle and I have talked about if that's something we need to do. this last go-around, we didn't have any applicants. So each time we've opened it up, we've had 1 or 2 applicants. This time we've had none. So we're going to reopen it, and if we don't have anything in the next 3 to 4 weeks, we're going to revisit if that means we need to go to the schools and get interest and then potentially pay for somebody to go through the training, if that's an
For
option.
mechanics?
Well, and I mean, Pat knows this guy, Matt Podorf, his dad was the teacher up there, you know, for a long time, teaching auto mechanics to those high schoolers, and it's like, why don't you have then, if you're having that big of a problem, talk with the teachers, talk with the professors, and say, you know, who shows the greatest potential, who are you most interested in?
But we have to get them in high school, because by the
That's what
time
I'm
they move
saying.
on, yes.
Talk with them in high
Yep.
school, and then say, because then have an application period and go to different high schools too. I'm not saying you can only go to Sioux City, but go to these different high school programs and say, we'd like to offer a scholarship, and have them say, we'll pay for you to be able to go to school, and then you sign an X year deal or something like that. And I think we need to get creative. I think that hospitals and everyone else needs to get creative in some of that stuff too, that are having workforce shortages, but
Yeah, Janelle and I have had at length, between Janelle and I and Jeff, at length conversations about that. As long as we were still getting applicants, though, we were like, okay, we'll just keep opening it. Maybe we only get 1 or 2, but at this point now, we haven't gotten any. And if we go another spell where we don't get any, we'll have to revisit that.
Part of your problem is you don't pay enough. I do enough tax returns. And I do.
Well, the cost allocation plan will fix that, or help to fix, or, excuse me, the class
I don't know
council.
where they came in at, but you're not paying anywhere near what the market is.
Well, I mean, you're probably right. They are higher. I think that the mechanics out there were happy that what the results were. So in the next year or 2, that we'll see some increases, so that will help.
and it's tough selling a benefits package with.
It is. Well, yeah, that's difficult. It's,
You know what
they
I
don't,
mean?
they don't see
Not
the benefit to it.
Out of college, I didn't weigh that enough, you know, you just look at
They just don't see the benefit.
a price tag. or
And a lot of them can
salary.
still be on their parents' insurance for another, 5, 6 years.
Along the lines of what the carpenters and electrical unions have been doing, though, they've been saying, listen, you can get into the trades and you can be making X amount of dollars in this amount of time without this huge student loan hanging over your head. So I think this is a first step in adopting that kind of mindset and getting it out there, publicly. And, I mean, even down to our bus drivers, we train them for their CDLs now. I mean, that's
And
a
they'd have-
creative way to get them.
They have to be trained for CDLs too. Yep.
So,
We've been pretty fortunate. We did get one of the old professors at WIT that was kind of done teaching and decided he wanted to get back into the mechanical out at CMG, so that's nice. He's got a lot of experience. Yeah, he's seasoned.
Seasoned.
Got a lot of experience.
Seasoned professor.
He's not old, he's seasoned.
Yeah.
That's right.
Retire?
And
What's that
Jeff
mean?
Diedeker, which is the fleet manager, he brings a lot of knowledge. He's made a lot of great changes out there, and he's willing to look at some creative ways to make some updates and changes. We've changed the hours. We have 2 shifts. Now the second shift overlaps by 4 hours with the first shift. There's enough space, and it's actually allowed us to hire people. A lot of people don't want to work until 11 o'clock at night. So giving them the ability to get off at 7 o'clock was huge.
I credit you for that.
That was huge.
Good job making that mid-shift. It really was.
I mean, Jeff was on board and he was willing, and it was one of the best decisions that we did for the garage, so it was good, huge. So we still have an opening, so we'll continue to work towards that, so.
I have a general question for you. I'm looking at we're on Public Works. I'm looking at the Public Works Department organizational chart. What do all of you do? I mean, what do you have it covered? Because I'm trying to line it up here and I don't see it.
I'm over engineering.
You are over, engineering?
And I'm over streets at the moment.
And in the book, it says field services.
Oh, field services, yep.
Field services, okay.
Then I'm over fleet. Spreading out the wealth.
I got it now. Thank you.
And you've been over this for,
I was just asking Gordon.
About a year and a half.
Year and a
Yeah,
half.
he did this last year, and Dave was gone last year, so.
All of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next up is city council.
Got it.
I move to approve. I have
Page 93.
90,
I'm taking this as in a good year, Doug.
and what are we raising the $3,000 for? Wasn't it always in there, or is this something new?
For what?
I'm going to withdraw my motion.
42,000 for an election and 3,000 in contributions. So that's got to be an increase of 3,000 in contributions.
Looks like they added 500 to the NAACP, 1,500 to Saturday in the Park, and $1,000 in miscellaneous.
But Saturday in the Park already gets 10, right?
Yeah, but it used to only be budgeted at 8,500.
What's that?
It used to only be budgeted at
I
8,500.
got you. Okay, okay. So what's the other 38,000?
Breakdown of what that entails.
Thank you.
Care.
I thought this,
I imagine that's the prorated amount,
I thought the Siouxland
the 1,800.
one-year deal, is it ongoing forever?
It has been, yeah.
Our contribution or the event itself?
No, our contribution, it was kind of sold that they get it up and going.
I'm not,
Yeah. Oh, no, yeah,
I'm not,
With the Siouxland.
What are you looking at?
keep working down the list.
This one. Well, Siouxland,
It's grown a little.
where's the Mayor's Youth Commission?
It's in
That's Siouxland
Care.
Cares.
Is that, we give them all that for the Mayor's Youth Commission?
No, well, it goes to different, they give it to different agencies, right? Because Siouxland Cares right now funds, so a portion of it is.
In the future,
Fair
it'll be
Youth.
broken into more pieces, but
Yep.
that's the payment, the annual payment for the Mayor's Youth Commission was to Siouxland Cares.
Yep.
You're right, how much is that, though?
We have budget, last year was 16, a little under $17,000.
She's saying that's different things.
Well, now that Siouxland Cares is breaking up, it will be broken into pieces, and in large, my guess is this 18.5 will go to Community Connections is taking over the Mayor's Youth Commission. So this would go
Most of
to
that
there.
money goes to the Mayor's Youth Commission.
Most of it does, because a chunk of the.
Yeah, all the
PD
Siouxland
budget-
Cares payment go from, what we used to pay Siouxland Cares was strictly for the Mayor's Youth Commission and youth activities.
Well, and it looks larger because there was a chunk of money that was in PD that they used to buy things for them. Well, now we just give it to them as
Yes.
contribution. So that was added here.
okay.
I think there was also like a,
Yes,
Well, that's part of that, yeah.
that's part of the 18.
That's
And it
all
was
in the
paid out of the PD budget before. So now it just goes here and we contribute to them and then they utilize the funds in that way.
So this isn't really going up that much, then?
No.
No,
it just feels like it.
Did you want to talk about the Saturday in the Park request now, or do you want to just bring it back at wrap-up?
Ed?
do you want to discuss it?
As you know, it's not included in the budget. The baseline's been included in the budget, but you have received a request from Saturday in the Park to increase the annual donation from $10,000 to $50,000. So it'd be a $40,000 increase.
Somebody wants to move it, they'll have to move it.
You know, for the big picture, why that is such a large increase? Is it because other agencies have closed,
Yes, yes.
companies that have moved?
It's private
Pricing.
fundraising hasn't, it's more challenging to raise the private funds to sponsor the event.
Larger donors went away, obviously. So, and to open discussion, and I think we can, if we don't know the answer, which I don't think we do, because I think the last time I inquired what the economic impact of, that's, I think, what we need to kind of base this on, the economic impact. I asked Christy Franz to run it through for me, just so that I could show it to Mr. Burrows one year. And it was significant. I want
I
to
was gonna
say
say,
it was in the
I'm
$3
sure it's
million
astronomical.
range for economic impact as a one-day festival. Now, yes, it's a one-day festival, however, it's really not. People are coming into town the day ahead of time to, get themselves situated, et cetera. So we could have them perhaps do this quickly, this week or before a wrap-up and ask what that is. But I do know that at some point, the people who are running Saturday in the Park, they're looking at eventually being able to pass the festival off to another entity to, manage it. And they don't want to do it until they're 90, they said. So anyway, I'm not against it. I don't know where, it's going to have to come out of the general fund. Is that where it comes from? Or if it could come part of that sponsorship, we could do half. Maybe we could task another entity to do half of it. I'm not sure. But I would like to do that.
I'd like to get that information that you're outlining.
We'll reach out and ask her for that.
Ask Christy for it, yeah. We'll have to get some of the numbers from Dave or whomever. But,
And I think we can crunch some of that as well and look at that. I'm familiar with at least that calculator figure that comes from the state of Iowa. The other thing that I would let you know that might be an avenue for part of it, and I know that they're getting an ask, and I know that there have been others in the community too, but the CVB board or Explore Siouxland it did just establish in our last meeting that we have a new grant committee to where with some of our funds, so in addition to sponsoring sporting activities, community events, like concerts, like all of these different things to get more conferences and people here in Siouxland, in addition to those events specifically that they're supporting, they established a grant committee to where different organizations that we feel are providing an economic impact such as this will be able to apply for a grant and ask for additional funding. And so I almost texted Dave to ask where the CVB was at last year and look at our budget of what we can do this year and stuff. So I think there might be some room
That's who
for
I was thinking
increase
of, but I wasn't
in
gonna
some
say it yet.
areas.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm just saying like, yeah,
One.
as someone that's sitting on that, I think it is a great value add to our community, and whether or not it's necessarily all in our budget, I'm not sure that's what the goal should be for tax dollars, but I think that it has tremendous impact on our community.
yes, the return on investment would be, I think, captured.
Well, we will ask for
Is
information.
it inappropriate to ask for their 990?
That's available online. I think we can just go look at it, can't we? Are you sure? I think it is. You can get it, because I've looked at a couple different
I'll
ones.
see if I can find it.
Looked at.
Yeah.
I think you can get it. No, I've looked at,
Other ones that where it came up and we wanted.
several times.
I'm just saying that gives you a better idea where they're actually at,
What's a 990?
their tax return.
Tax return that they have to report for nonprofits.
Show salaries,
Yep.
expenses.
But that with the
So our-
calculator.
So our overall budget right now is, no, that's the FY '25 budget, was 41,000.
40, that's all.
Yeah, it's all election.
42,000 in the election expense and 41,000 in the contributions to other agencies.
That's why it's different. If you look back on 2024, it's high because of their election.
Tourism, page 259.
Good God.
I'm sorry, what page did you say?
259.
261, 304. How has this gone up this much?
Because of the new growth generated.
I understand that part, but is it that they're generating 240 and we get 25% and they get 75%, is that right?
But we have a base, and then anything over that base for the
Right.
hotel tax, we give them 75% and we take 25.
Yeah, so that's $240,000.
That's what we're budgeting, yep.
Is what, so that means they're gonna go up 300 and whatever, 320,000 in hotel motel.
Looks like they have. They went up
Okay.
significantly. 25 will probably be above, I mean, it was above what we budgeted. So we did that based on what was happening with 24 and 25, we budgeted.
Okay.
26 that way.
But you don't spend it unless they get it.
Correct, yep. And it's all based on actuals,
And how come it's,
or your actuals.
well, it is, how come it's property taxes instead of hotel motel tax? I realize they're both general fund, but.
Yeah, we could shift it to that. It's just that the property, I mean, it's either way. I mean, the hotel motel tax just supplements the reduction. It would probably look more appropriate if we put hotel motel tax.
I would think that.
Yeah,
You
we
just
can do that.
classify that, because I agree with the mayor, it's like,
Yeah.
I get it's coming out of the same fund, but it's not.
Still general.
Yeah, we can change the
Yep.
verbiage.
All right.
City manager, page 97.
He doesn't care. Got it, he doesn't care.
We do some reductions?
Well, and I was gonna ask about that. I know I've talked to Ann about it, and I understand the need, or, her request for it. I completely get this. And I tried to think creatively about, well, all of the different hats that I wear as far as, downtown partners, CVB, and obviously the city council and what our duty is, of getting the word out and what Ann does on social media with press releases and everything else. I think she does an exceptional job. And I think that this would be really helpful. I know that she has an intern that supplements that, or we try to recruit.
Try to, yeah.
And she's done well with trying to recruit that to be a more longer-term intern, or you know what I mean, like look for those positions. My question, Bob, is there money available to contract out some of that work? Like,
That would be part, I mean, you could modify the improvement request to try to contract it out.
because what's the request? How much does that?
91,000.
Yeah. And so what I wondered is, I obviously understand we're not gonna get that request, like wouldn't advocate for that. But I think to do some of what she is asking and what might be beneficial and have potential to show return on investment or assist, I do wonder, if you had $10,000 over the course of a year, or even $12,000 over the course of a year, so you have roughly $1,000 a month or something, and said to Ann, or worked with her and said, what do you think the priority is as far as what we need to do with our social media presence? What would have return on investment, whether it's positions, whether it's awareness, whether it's texting services, whether it's just updates from, city business, whether it's showcasing our amenities or things like that, what would that look like? And then, who could you, because I know there are a couple private contractors that do this type of stuff, or individuals that you can hire. And I wonder if that would show, yes, there is return, or, what I'm trying to wrap my mind around what the benefit would be of FTE versus just a supplemental, someone that supplementally assists.
And I can talk to Ann. I think the big deal is a lot of our social media posts are very time urgent.
Yes.
And she spends a lot of her time on police, fire, you know, those things that pop up, water main breaks, those things that pop up. I don't know that you're gonna be able to accomplish that through
No.
a $1,000 a month contract. But I'm more than happy to talk to her. I'll talk to her over the next week about what she envisions a contractor could do
Yeah.
to alleviate some of her workload.
Well, and I was gonna say, to that exact point, allow her to do those types of things that are more urgent. She's the day-to-day employee that then can get that information and make sure it's accurate. But at least she can maybe take something off of her plate that would help promote or showcase different things that are happening or what the community has to offer that would have some ROI for that. I mean, that's what I would look at, is then can we take that part off of her plate or at least complement what she.
I agree, and that's one of the first comments that I made to Mr. Padmore today, because even if it's not something that's in the budget for this year, I don't think the need for it's gonna go away at all.
No,
In fact, I think it's gonna increase.
Yeah.
Because as we look at changes, you know, in the state legislature about how we can post and when we can post as far as like information for public meetings, that is going to increase the demand on Ann overall. And we all know that she's everywhere all at once already. So
Well, and how people consume their information.
Exactly.
That's what I think
exactly,
about,
yeah.
that it's
Need to
like,
pivot more.
if a huge part of your community is, you know, accessing information through these channels, she's only one person, and social media is not her job. You know, it's just one added component of it. And like I've said, and I've messaged her, I think as far as a lot of different accounts I follow and things that I pay attention to, I think she does it better than most.
Oh, absolutely.
But I think that, I wonder if this would allow her to feel like she was actually on top of other things and could be there for the more urgent need.
Well, and she does so much for, you know, the education piece of it, the customer service piece of it. I mean, we're roping in several different, I think purview that would fall outside of her department typically and into other departments.
Yes.
She's capturing a lot of that already.
Well, and similar,
But yeah, to your point, I mean, if we can find any way to outsource the pieces of her role that we can plan for, then some of that stuff that we can't anticipate for, you know, freeing up some of her time for those things, I think would be.
well, and like, look at what human rights we were talking about. Okay, you need more awareness of who to call for what issues, or, you know, these processes, or this is a claim, this isn't. You also have like, with utilities or with public works, you have the sidewalk clearing and some of those things, or weed abatements, you know, and that type of stuff. Those, none of that, it goes away, but you need more awareness of it. And so it's like, okay, well, if you can formulate and schedule those things in advance, which any contractor, social media contractor would do, you would just schedule those posts a year out.
Yeah.
I just wonder if it would alleviate at least giving her, you know, seeing what that dollar amount looks like if it's not an FTE, to allow her to play with it and take some of that off of her plate. I just wonder if that would be highly beneficial for that.
It'd be nice to know kind of what the going rate is, to have somebody come in. Yeah.
She can give direction that she wants it done. I mean, maybe she doesn't have time to go out in the field with her camera and spend an hour or 2 hours, you know, documenting ribbon cuttings and things that are important to the city. She could send
Additions to the
someone
community,
else,
or, yeah,
right.
new things happening. And
Seems like a good job for an intern.
It does.
And that's where,
Yeah.
that's where it's been
Didn't-
difficult too, to find long-term interns or be able to, but I agree with you.
We've had some really good interns, but
Do we have a way of tracking how many look on the website? I can't think what.
yeah, I think we have tracking software.
Do we get that, see what?
Sure, I'll see what I can find out.
The called hits out?
Well, on social media, she can pull her in.
Clicks.
Yeah, like
It's-
Facebook will have metrics for that, and, you know.
Acting with it.
Engaged,
how many
right.
People are pulling it up or liking it or engaging with it. I mean, yeah, you can really
Let's
get
get a
into.
count, yeah, let's get a count on that.
If you can have
We'll bring that back.
Or
Okay.
As
for
a
the
memo.
last year, what that impact was. I think it's warranted, but I understand that an FTE is not possible.
Okay,
Okay, finance, page 127.
that was your last one, Mr. Padmore, city manager.
Yep.
Just went right through.
We can no longer eat credit card bills.
Agreed.
No.
Not a penny of it.
Cash or check. I get the same deal as somebody gets 2 to 3 points on mileage, and that's why they're using the credit card.
So I am addressing that.
Costs us 100,000, let me finish, costs 100,000 at least a year, or increase this year. $100,000 is $2.
So I am in the process of doing, I sent you guys a memo, we're going to do a 6-month trial. Last year when we came to you for wrap-up, what we were unaware of until we went to implement it was that with our credit card processor, if we move from credit cards to electronic check via the website, we used to pay 75 cents for an electronic check. Now it moves up to $3.20 if we cost share. So if we change the cost share structure, so if all of those people that pay currently with credit cards shift to an electronic check, we're no better off unless we were to charge both of them. Now, the concern with that is that then it drives people into City Hall, and there'll be a larger need in customer service for employees. I don't know if it will or not. But I'm in the process right now, working with Pimentas, working with IT and Central Square to get that implemented. We're going to do a 6-month trial just to see what happens. I want to start it in March while it's still cold and get some summer months too, so we get to see, people change their behaviors in the summer and, the winter, see what happens. And then we'll report back what we see. We know that if 40% of people move from credit cards to electronic check via online, then we're at neutral. But if more people move, it actually costs us more money. So we really need to know what that looks like.
Just have to educate us that this is what's going to happen. No one eats the credit card fees.
The other option that was brought up to me by Heidi was that right now, when people sign up, we make them go to electronic billing. Is there an option for, and I believe Mike Collette has said too, is there an option to automatically default them to electronic and force them to move back to paper? Because the cost of postage is going up significantly. And already we eat a ton of cost in delinquencies. So we have to send out delinquencies via paper. So your third delinquency has to go out via paper. And now the stamp cost has been driven up so significantly. Or do we increase, when you're delinquent, increase the delinquency fee to cover that?
You got to.
So those are things that we're going to look at.
The other thing is, I want you to check, I know I'm going to give the Journal something to write about today. No, the readership on the Sioux City Journal is decreased dramatically, but their cost for us to publicize has increased more dramatically because of your lobbyist at the State House. God bless you, you got a good lobbyist, we should hire him. That's not acceptable anymore. Nobody reads the newspaper and that part of it, in particular online. I can guarantee it. I don't care if you print it in the Sergeant Bluff paper.
We have to print it in the Sioux City Journal.
I know, and we have to get a legislative change because it's not acceptable anymore that we have no bargaining power with them whatsoever. And what we write checks to them for is a lot of money.
Yeah, it is. The county has an option to go to any city within the county. We don't have that option. So they can print in Mobile, Sergeant Bluff.
Well,
We
then
just don't have
somebody
that
needs to
option.
start a new paper in Sioux City to do
Just
our
for that.
publication.
Something.
Daily Reporter?
Where's the Daily Reporter? Do
Mayor,
they still
that's a
print?
retirement project.
The Daily
right
Reporter
there.
on?
Yeah, they
Still
folded
going?
a long time ago.
It's ridiculous. You can't even negotiate.
Contact the Slotskys and get it going again.
Yeah.
What about
Hey,
a
Morningside has a
newspaper from a
paper.
school? Does
I was
that
gonna say, we have the
qualify?
Collegiate Reporter.
Right.
I don't know if that counts.
No.
Is it registered? Probably not. Darn it.
Well, I am a fan of raising the rates for e-checks, for whatever it is. It should not cost the city the money because it's costing other taxpayers the money for the convenience for other people. So we should not be paying not a dime.
Can't go buy my plates at the courthouse.
No, I was just there, and there were people there spending 2,000, 4,000, and they said, now, just so you know, there's fee on your credit card, and they said, I'm fine.
I think getting your driver's license renewed costs $1.50, and it's only
And
$10.
if you do a check, it costs 75 cents, I think, at the driver's license place.
If you send it in, yes, because that's what the cost of postage, that's how they get away with
It's
that.
$1
because they have to
more
send it
on
back.
license plates, is what they charge you.
Yeah. So we just need to get in line and not feel guilty about.
I think just the concern is whether or not our citizens absorb that, or if they change their habits,
The
start to come into
restaurants
City Hall.
all have conditioned the citizens for you.
Yes.
I hope so. I
It'll
hope
be
so.
fine. I
And if they
truthfully
have,
believe
then
it'll
we'll,
be fine.
They
I
have,
really do.
I used to live in that.
so are
There
you,
is no way I would.
are you giving direction to have an increase too for the electronic check? Or, because right now that's still a free option.
Yes,
Okay.
I would move that.
Okay, well, do you want to do that today, or do you want to bring it back to wrap up?
We better,
Wrap up, because we
Yeah.
wouldn't
Okay.
necessarily put it
Gotta
in
have
play, but we can't continue to eat these
And not
exorbitant bank charges.
Well, and how come we didn't find that out until later on? We just missed
Yeah.
reviewing it?
Well, when we inquired with Pimentus, that was not disclosed to us until we went to implement it. So
You did the contract.
we were unaware.
Go back and negotiate that with them and say, hey.
I've tried that, and I'm in the process of determining if we can renegotiate the cost for the electronic check. I have not heard back from them again. But Pimentus is one of the only 3 options we have to utilize with Central Square, so we are limited. One of the others that we utilized prior to them was not a good working relationship. We had a lot of it. So we're starting to dwindle down who
Well, our new vendor
can
will
utilize.
get off on the right foot with us, so.
Yeah, I would hope so. Ames utilizes them, and Ames does push all of the fees on to the consumer, but they have a lot of college-age kids, too, that are used to paying that fee. I mean, it's their parents' money. So they don't think about the fee as much as maybe our citizens would. So,
All right.
I truly
That
believe
it?
they will.
that's it.
well, we have
That's a
lunch, so
wrap.
we do have to dismiss to lunch and then come back, because we'll still be in session, which is,
Oh, that's right.
Sorry.
Let's do it right,
Can't you
yeah.
adjourn and then just have,
Well, we
Yeah.
still have a quorum.
yeah, sorry.
No, don't be,
So if you want to
So
eat
we'll-
lunch, we have to.
we want to,
I don't want to eat lunch. You
obey.
guys can. I'm leaving.
Well, you've ordered
Well,
for
unless-
us, I'll come in.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You already
Okay.
ordered and paid.
Well, that's fine. You don't have to adjourn. Go have lunch.
Okay, we'll break to lunch.
Lunch, don't you want to go?
It's cash.
Fails for lack of a second.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Jules. Where are you?
Okay, we're back. Overflow. Anybody?
Yes. So, I wish I would have said this earlier. I was looking at the 2 police positions, and I understand that is a big hit. I'd like to examine 1 police position, 1 full-time police officer to be brought back at wrap-up. The reason that I'm rationalizing that is if you all remember when we expanded it by 4 positions a few years ago, that really, I mean, that's a big hit. Filling 4 positions versus filling 1 position a year is a much higher hit. And we all know where our police staffing numbers are, and we know where we would like them to be, I will say. So I'd at least like us to have that conversation about what 1 full-time police officer, adding that onto the budget would look like, and seeing if there's any possible ways that we could find funding for it.
Like that brought back?
Yep.
I remember they taught me in law school, never ask a question you don't know the answer to. I did it the day that I asked the chief, because I was going to be really proud about this, because I really advocated for 2 police officers, which got okayed. I think that's probably when we raised it to 4. But I just wanted at least 2. And I said, how's that working out? And he said, we haven't been able to fill the positions yet. I thought, oh, wish I wouldn't have brought it up. I brought it up again now.
Yep.
But they hadn't filled, and that was like 8, 9 months later.
Yep, it's a continual process. It's continuously trying to advertise the positions out, and
It sounds like they had a good year for.
it does. It does, and that you know, that bodes well for us. But it's a continual process, just like we heard from him today. We're always having retirements, but we're also always having people off on leave for some reason.
Expected.
Yep, exactly. And so we need to budget for that.
That, Teresa?
Yep, we'll bring that back for wrap-up.
Okay, all right. Anybody else have anything? I'll move that we adjourn.
Second.
Third.
Waters,
Aye.
Moore,
She just waited till you took the bite.
That's how this.
I'm sorry,
How's
Yeah.
everything?
Aye.
O'Kane,
Aye.
Shaner.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day.
Matthew.
Hopefully the snow goes off.
Mayor, I know the mayor's listening because he limited.
Right, I'm sure he is.
Yeah.